a magnificent mansion, a perfectly manicured garden, and a beautiful blonde woman stood before him. The scene immediately reminded him of the world of an otome game. He wondered if this was an otome game, but continued sipping his tea and decided to think about it later. The blonde girl asked if he was listening to her. He replied that of course he was paying full attention. She went on to tell some story, but before she could finish, he exclaimed how interesting it was. She yelled that she wasn't finished and that she was tired of it. She demanded that he behave like a gentleman and at least try to be a little like Roy. He wondered who Roy was, and only upon hearing that name did he truly believe he was in an otome game, because the blonde woman kept talking about Roy. He was so oblivious that only upon hearing that name did he realize everything. Roy was the first prince, the #1 target in your star, the male protagonist, if he remembered correctly. Your star. I'll do anything for you. That was the name of the game. How did he know about this game? It's simple. He used to help his sister play it. He remembers his sister telling him all about the game in a previous life. And in this world, he's an only child. The girl sitting opposite him was Lydia von Ernst, the Duke's daughter, and also the antagonist in Roy's storyline. Lydia was Roy's fiancée, a woman not to be taken lightly. And now the two of them were in a corner of her expansive garden. He was also the son and apprentice of the Duke's gardener, Isaac Baumgarten. Although previously when he helped his sister play this game, he had never seen any apprentice gardeners before. In this case, he wasn't even a minor character. 3 years ago, in the grand hall of the Ernst mansion, he was born with memories from a past life. But what good was that knowledge? He didn't think he should tell anyone about it. The day he entered the mansion, he became his father's apprentice. Now they were standing in the Duke's residence. The Duke descended the stairs. Upon seeing Isaac, he remarked that the boy was very charming. Isaac looked at the Duke and thought to himself that he was very handsome. His father greeted the Duke and said that his son was still young, but he was confident that he could train him properly. Before starting work, he wanted to introduce the boy to the Duke. The boy said, "My name is Isaac Baumgartner. It is an honor to meet you." The Duke introduced himself as Gerald and said he was pleased to meet Isaac. He remarked that the boy looked very young and asked how old he was. Isaac's father replied that his son was only 7 years old. Gerald was impressed, noting that at such a young age he was already capable of performing the work of an apprentice. That's quite impressive. He's probably very intelligent. However, Isaac's father humbly replied that it wasn't true. The boy was just a little mischievous. The Duke said that Isaac was only 2 years older than his daughter, and perhaps he should be playing instead of working. Isaac replied that was not the case. He wanted to start guarding the Duke's garden as soon as possible. His father was tending the estate's vast garden all by himself, and he wanted to help him and earn his father's recognition by continuing this work. The Duke smiled, finding it endearing and wishing he had a son like that. A little girl entered the room. The Duke affectionately called her his precious little angel and asked her where she had been all morning. The little girl told her father that he had been too harsh because the maid he arranged for her was so incompetent. When she helped her comb her hair, the comb got caught in her hair, causing her a lot of pain. The Duke stroked his daughter's head and said that Lydia's beautiful hair was very sensitive, so he could imagine how much pain she must have been in. The little girl immediately shouted that he had to fire that clumsy, limbless man right away. The atmosphere in the room immediately became strangely silent. Isaac commented that her temper was terrible. All eyes in the room turned towards him. Isaac's father immediately patted his son on the head, demanding that he apologize right away. But Isaac remained silent. He thought to himself that just because she was from a noble family didn't give her the right to dismiss people so arbitrarily. He didn't understand why he should apologize to her. The little girl turned to Isaac and asked what he had just said. Isaac replied that he had said she was a terrible child with awful manners, and that she would surely grow up to be a rare freak. She asked if he knew who he was talking to. Isaac calmly replied that she was the Duke's daughter. She confirmed this, then asked if he thought commoners had the right to speak to the nobility in such a manner. Isaac asked if it was true that her father was very powerful, and she confirmed it. He then asked if it was true that she was also powerful, and she nodded. Isaac then asked what her power was. She replied that it was precisely what she was referring to. Isaac repeated his question about what power he meant. He explained that the Duke had earned his reputation by shouldering great responsibility and fulfilling many duties. So what was it about her that made her special? She replied that she belonged to the Ernst family. Isaac then asked if it wasn't her father, as the head of the family, who had the sole authority to decide who was dismissed or not. The girl was flustered, unsure how to answer. She raised her hand to slap him, but he only looked at her with a chillingly cold gaze. The girl was stunned. He, on the other hand, said that if she had to resort to violence, then she had already lost, and he hadn't even needed to use his strongest card yet. Clearly, she couldn't answer his question. Of course, she knew she was still a long way from her father. The little girl clenched her fists, turned her back, and ran away. Isaac sensed the imminent danger from his father, but the Duke stopped him and expressed his gratitude to him. He hastily apologized, saying he didn't understand why he had acted that way and hadn't thought carefully before speaking to the Duke's daughter, but the Duke felt that Isaac had actually saved him. Normally, he couldn't even bring himself to scold his daughter. Responding to a question with a question intrigued him, and he thought he should try it out. Isaac secretly recalled that he had tested this tactic on his sister in a previous life. At that moment, the butler came out and reminded the Duke of the time. The Duke said he had to leave but would be back soon. As he left the room, he added that his sweet Lydia was as beautiful as an angel, and he could assure him that her inner world was just as beautiful as her appearance. Isaac agreed, but wondered why all parents could love their children so blindly. As the father and son left the Duke's house, the father became angry and scolded him, saying that he should have apologized sincerely. Isaac replied that he was truly, truly remorseful. Lydia was sitting alone at a table on the patio at that moment, having lunch. The little girl thought to herself that she couldn't find any words to respond at the time, which is why she had to retreat so hastily. But sooner or later she would show that insolent person who was in charge here. She turned to the servant and asked who the boy from that morning was. The servant replied that he had accompanied Mr. Baumgartner and was probably the gardener's apprentice. The girl was surprised to learn that such an uneducated person was one of the servants in her house. She said it was astonishing that their garden could still exist with such workers. After finishing her tea, she decided to take a walk in the garden. When she got to the garden, she saw Isaac working and asked him to stop for a moment. He continued working and asked what was wrong. Because she looked out of breath, Lydia asked why he worked so far away. Isaac retorted, "Did you really cross the entire estate's vast gardens just to ask that one question?" He wanted to know the real reason she was there. She announced that she had come to give him one more chance, to beg for her forgiveness. He was surprised that such a young lady could run so far. Isaac asked if Lydia had skipped school today. Lydia replied that she didn't have any classes today. Isaac thought to himself that aristocratic children seemed to have a lot of activities and responsibilities of their own. Lydia confirmed that this was true. Isaac then apologized for using inappropriate language. Lydia thought to herself that she had gone to all this trouble to win against him, yet he was apologizing so easily. She yelled, demanding that he look her in the eye when asking for forgiveness, and that he should apologize for it as well. Isaac felt it was outrageous. He had already wasted so much time apologizing, all because his father forced him to, and there was so much work to be done here, at least until sunset. Lydia asked him what he was so busy with. Isaac explained that he was harvesting and trimming some herbs that repel insects, because if left unchecked, they would grow excessively. Lydia wondered why they needed to be trimmed. Isaac explained that herbs were actually just like weeds. They would grow vigorously and could overwhelm other plants. Lydia admitted that she didn't know that some useful plants could also be harmful. She then asked what he would do with all the herbs he had picked. Isaac explained that he would ask the kitchen staff if they needed any, and give the rest to his mother. Those plants can be used to marinate meat or make tea. Lydia looked surprised. She had never imagined that weeds could be used to make tea or as a spice. But then she yelled, telling him he should apologize instead of talking nonsense. Isaac asked what he should apologize for. Was it because he had once said she behaved badly? Lydia confirmed it. Isaac then asked, if the king suddenly launched a war and attacked a neighboring country, how would she feel if her father were sent to the battlefield? Lydia replied that it was an act of tyranny, that such a king was a complete fool. If such a war were to break out, wouldn't countless innocent people suffer? She would never forgive a king who would force her father to risk his life in battle. Isaac said that her answer was very correct, then asked if she saw any similarities. It was terrible that she would vent her anger on a servant like that. For commoners, having a job to make a living was extremely important. Therefore, even though Lydia came from a noble lineage, to condemn a servant to the point of dismissal, that is, to push them to the brink. There needed to be a justifiable reason. The girl was lost in thought. Isaac asked her if she knew the servant's name. Lydia replied that she did not. He then asked if she knew what that person's talent was, because that servant made the best tea in the mansion. If she fired her, she would no longer get to drink good tea. And wouldn't that be a loss for her? This leads to a clear conclusion. Lydia should be more considerate of her servants. It's not difficult, but it offers many benefits. Isaac turned to her and asked if she was the one who wanted his approval. Lydia nodded in confirmation. Isaac patted her head and told her that from now on, before doing anything, she had to make sure she had a compelling reason before taking any serious actions that might affect others. She thought he was the only one who understood everything. She blushed and Isaac noticed. She slapped his arm and asked who was responsible for this. Isaac was just communicating in his usual way. Lydia yelled that it was inappropriate. She was of noble birth and he was a commoner. He didn't like being teased like that. Isaac asked to be called by his first name. He asked if her name was Dia. She said that only family members were allowed to call her that. Her father had given her the beautiful name Lydia. Isaac said that perhaps he would call her Dia or Lydia, but then admitted that it didn't suit her at all. The girl agreed that it didn't suit her at all. Isaac said he would call her Milady. Then Lydia corrected him, saying the correct way to address her was Milady. She told Isaac that he looked like a teacher but didn't look much older than her. He thought the problem was that Lydia was acting like a child. If she asked the Duke or anyone in her family, he was sure they would agree. She said she couldn't ask them that. She said she couldn't behave irresponsibly and carelessly because she was afraid of being rejected. Isaac asked why she couldn't simply talk to her father. He thought the Duke would be very pleased. Lydia asked how he knew that. Isaac said it was true and asked her to believe him, but that she should figure things out herself, not wait for others to tell her. There were plenty of people around her. She was the daughter of a duke, and she should have been able to recognize their personalities, characteristics, and moods. But perhaps she couldn't because she grew up in a loving family. He asked her to stop firing people over trivial matters. She yelled that enough was enough, that she wouldn't do it again. She said she hoped it wasn't too late to apologize to the maid. Isaac suggested that before apologizing, he should ask her name. Lydia was silent for a moment, then said that she understood, and demanded that Isaac retract his comment about his terrible temper. He was silent for quite a while, then said that he had been too harsh. Although the intention was good, the way it was said was too rude. He said Lydia was really wonderful, but she was even more adorable when she smiled. She blushed again. He asked if she was okay. The girl replied that it was all right. She raised her hand and felt something crumbly in her hair. She was surprised to find dirt on her head. Isaac explained that it was fertilizer, because he had accidentally patted her on the head while still wearing his gardening gloves. She screamed very loudly. It was a chaotic day, all because of that boy. Yet for some reason she didn't want it to end. Upon returning to the mansion, she wanted to know the maid's name and apologize first before even thinking about cleaning the dirt from her hair. In the first spring after becoming an apprentice, Isaac was embraced and thanked by the Duke. The butler told him to wait a moment, warning him that His Highness might get dirty. Isaac replied that honestly, he didn't think he had done anything to deserve thanks. He didn't understand what he had done. The Duke explained that the little girl had become much cuter. The Duke said she was always the best, but now she's even more adorable. He asked me what that had to do with anything. The Duke said that ever since Isaac reprimanded her, Lydia had begun to see him off every morning. And his wife, Via, also noticed that Lydia had started spending time with her sister Flora every day. Now the whole family at least sat down for a meal together, and he had someone to argue with, so that every time he came home it felt like a holiday. Isaac said it was because Lydia was trying. But the Duke disagreed. He believed it was Isaac who had brought about the change. He said a little bird had told him that the two had always been talking to each other. From that day on, Lydia would visit every few days for one reason or another, telling Isaac all sorts of things, while he listened while he worked. She told him that she had made peace with her maid Catherine, and that her younger sister Flora was tiny and incredibly adorable. The Duke smiled and said that he thought Lydia had become closer to the family thanks to having a peer. He asked Isaac to try to continue to get along with her, then shook his hand. Isaac agreed. The Duke said he wouldn't bother him anymore. Isaac waved goodbye, apologized for soiling his coat, and wondered when he had become so obsequious. His father then told him to return to work. At work, he was Isaac's superior, so Isaac had to maintain a professional demeanor. As an apprentice, his duties included carrying, serving, and not causing any trouble, but he could observe his father tending the garden from the front row. When he was very young, his father used to show him the playground he had created. It was like magic. When the flowers planted for the holidays bloomed, everything was so magical that he once thought his father was a wizard. Indeed, magic exists in this world. Those who can control the flow of magic are called mages. It is extremely rare for commoners to be able to use magic, so this ability is usually only found among the nobility. Isaac's father had a knack for earth magic, which allowed him to understand the properties of the soil, but he didn't use magic himself. Gardening required knowledge and skill, not magical ability, so he didn't use magic in his work. In his previous life, just thinking about magic was fascinating. But now, honestly, magic doesn't seem so special anymore, especially after experiencing magic in video games. Now it feels like he's surrounded by high-frequency radio waves. Isaac was watering the plants and wondering what kind of magic Lydia was inclined toward. Judging by her bright red dresses and haughty personality, he guessed it must be a rather bad image. Just then, Lydia appeared in the garden and called out his name. He asked what was wrong today. Lydia replied that it seemed she had inherited her mother's personality. The little girl had just discovered she had magical abilities. Usually, people discover they have magical abilities around the age of 5, so it seems Lydia had just found out. Isaac said it was wonderful and asked her what kind of magic she was inclined towards. Lydia replied that it was lightning. Isaac immediately realized that this was his weakness, so now he definitely couldn't anger her anymore. Lydia regretted that such magic was almost unusable, unlike her mother who could curl all her hair with a single spell. Isaac said she could now use magic to power the machinery in factories. Lydia, half astonished and half angry, asked if he was immortal to suggest she work in a factory. Isaac laughed, saying he thought it might just be a backup generator. Lydia, enraged, unleashed a small electrical current. Isaac quickly apologized, saying that he hadn't thought it through and that the lightning had simply given him a fright. He thought she probably just hung around here because he was the only one her age. His younger sister used to bother him like that too. Isaac told Lydia that she always dressed so brightly, as he was referring to her dress today. It's pink with lace and ribbon. It's not only colorful but also incredibly eye-catching. Lydia explained that the dress protected her. She belonged to the highest class of nobility, but being so young, she couldn't react to those who hated or despised her. The dress helped her stand out. Stand out from the crowd, in other words. It made her feel stronger. Isaac thought this was a very childish thought. He himself had once worn red for the same reason. He asked Lydia if it was true that she really didn't like this style of dress. Lydia thought for a moment. Isaac then asked what she would like to wear if she had the choice. Lydia thought for a moment and then replied that she wanted to wear softer colors like her mother. She wanted to try, but couldn't. Isaac said she was too worried about maintaining her social status. But actually, he said how she dressed didn't matter that much. She asked why Isaac was so confident. Isaac replied that it was because she was very beautiful. Lydia blushed again. Isaac realized that and said that she was always beautiful, frank, sincere, and full of confidence. And really, what other people say doesn't matter. She asked Isaac why he was acting like that, and if there was something wrong with him. She felt confused. Isaac said that was enough and hoped to see her in a new image soon. As he had said before, not because of her. A few days later, Lydia wore a cherry blossom-colored dress for the first time and visited Isaac. After spring comes the rainy season. Isaac continued working in the garden. He noticed it looked like it was about to rain. Because he had a penchant for water magic, he could sense the approaching rain. He was a little worried, as it seemed like a big thunderstorm was coming. His father said they probably wouldn't be home anytime soon. When the storm hit, the gardeners took shelter in a small hut. If anything happened to the garden, they could intervene immediately. Isaac said that if that happened, he should let his mother know they would be staying overnight. He clasped his hands together and created a dove, the simplest form of wind magic. It would vanish upon arrival, but would last long enough for him to include a message. In this world, Isaac isn't limited to just the element he's inclined towards, but using magic is still much easier if you use the right system. To maintain his balance, he practiced not only water magic but also other elements, which allowed him to use wind magic. It could even make it difficult for others to detect. It's like an atomic minigame that even your little sister could play. But it's not easy to really understand that. Here the RPG elements are designed in great detail. Even growing grass has its own skills. When he was playing games, he wasn't very interested in the details, so he's practically forgotten everything. Lydia called out to him, and he turned around and told her to be careful because leaves and branches were falling. She asked what they were doing, and Isaac explained that they were trimming the branches so the tree wouldn't lean to one side. She asked if the branches could be used for firewood, and Isaac said they couldn't. He said it was going to rain again. Lydia asked how he knew. Isaac explained that he had a penchant for water magic. He asked her if he had never told her before, and Lydia said this was the first time she had heard of it. Isaac said there were more important things to do right now, and that she should hurry inside before getting wet. He had something else to tell her, and Lydia listened attentively. He said they would be staying in the outbuildings tonight, as the rain would stop soon, so if she needed to find him, she could go there. Lydia was surprised, and she asked if she had misheard that he would still be here after sunset. He was right. There was still plenty of work to be done. Lydia smiled and said she would send someone to pick him up after dinner. She left, promising to see him again. Isaac wondered if Lydia was getting too excited, and for a moment he even thought she was in trouble. It seemed this would be his first time meeting her family, so he should tidy himself up, wash his face, and change into more presentable clothes. But first, he needed to prepare dinner. They would have to do all the cooking themselves. His mother would take care of the housework, his father would handle all the heavy chores, and he would try to help his mother as much as possible. It's not that his father doesn't know how to cook, but since he learned from his mother's cooking is clearly better. Unfortunately, only his father could handle the heavy lifting. He had told his mother that when he grew up, he would help her carry things. She had said she couldn't wait, so he needed to work and help with whatever he could. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary student, helping his parents in their family restaurant. Find a normal job, they eat ordinary food and work extra jobs to save money. He didn't go to the best university because he didn't always try his best. His greatest regret was his complacency and self-satisfaction. Although he died in an accident, the truth is, he had been diagnosed with cancer while he was looking for a job. He was forced to undergo a medical examination. He was then informed that he was in the final stages of his illness, with only 3 months to live. He fell into despair, not knowing how to tell his family and friends. He didn't even notice the rain, much less the car speeding towards him. He died 3 months earlier than his scheduled time. To be honest, he always respected his stubborn father who had worked hard his whole life. So he decided it would be easier to take the simpler path and inherit the restaurant. From the beginning, it was like a backup airport. Only after his death did he realize how insignificant he was compared to his father. After being reborn, he resolved to live a life without regrets. Regardless of what others think, he will be proud of what he does. Memories of his past life have helped him make his own decisions about everything. His father came down the stairs, patted his head, hugged him, and told him to hurry because the thunder had started to rumble. He lifted the boy onto his shoulders and ran home. The wind was blowing strongly. Father ran quickly through the garden. Isaac felt excited. He told his father that he had completely forgotten and asked him to stop in the kitchen. Isaac hugged his father tightly and thanked him for everything. His father smiled happily and ran even faster. They approached the outbuilding. Isaac wondered if the gardener's outbuilding was really like that. It was much nicer than their own house. He had heard that this place was built during the Duke's grandfather's time, so he expected to see a dilapidated shack. Now he was truly astonished. He had almost forgotten that he really wanted to rest, but he had promised Lydia he would visit her. He told his father that he could take a bath first, as he still had some work to do. It started to rain outside. After he and his father had dinner, Isaac went to take a shower. While he was showering, he heard a knock on the door. His father opened the door and saw the butler standing under an umbrella. He said that the young lady was waiting for Isaac. Isaac happily shouted that he would be there right away. He wrapped a scarf around his head. His father dried his hair with the scarf and told him to remember to find a raincoat. He found a raincoat and put it on Isaac. Isaac thanked his father and went to the palace. He was sitting on a large sofa in the lobby where he had been asked to wait until the young lady was called out. He felt a little uneasy. He wondered if they were so polite to all commoners. He couldn't imagine what servants like the Duke's butler or Lydia's personal maid were thinking. Lydia entered the room with her maid, Catherine. She thanked Isaac for waiting. Lydia introduced Catherine as Catherine von Lehar. He bowed his head and apologized for his lack of understanding. Lydia introduced the boy to her, saying, "This is Isaac Baumgartner, the gardening apprentice." The maid said her name was Catherine, and that she served Lady Lydia. Isaac was delighted to meet her. The girl said he could just call her Catherine. Isaac said he felt lucky to have had tea brewed by her. The young lady always praised her tea so much that he really wanted to taste it. Lydia was angry and told him to stop talking nonsense. Isaac told her not to be embarrassed because she often told funny stories about Catherine, about how she made tea from unusual leaves, about how she was no longer afraid of her and had started to smile at her. Lydia asked why he said that and gently tapped Isaac on the shoulder. He asked if she disliked Catherine. Lydia told him to be quiet. Catherine, watching them, giggled and said they looked like very close friends. Lydia declared that she didn't care at all. Isaac thought she didn't seem bothered at all by Catherine's laughter. As usual, all her emotions were clearly visible on her face. Lydia asked what had happened to his hair. He explained that his father had tried to dry himself off after a bath. Lydia expressed her pleasure at his attention to his appearance, but said that the effort was clearly insufficient. He tried to justify himself by saying he couldn't keep her waiting any longer. Lydia said there were no buts and told Catherine to bring her a comb as soon as Catherine finished making tea and she was allowed to leave. She obeyed and brought a comb. While Isaac sipped his tea, Lydia gently combed his hair. He asked if her tea had gone cold, but Lydia replied that Catherine's tea was still excellent, even when it had cooled down. After brushing his hair, she said he looked much better like this. He asked her what she had brought. Lydia suddenly remembered and explained that she wanted to show him her favorite picture book, a book about dragons. She asked if that was too childish for him. Isaac immediately denied it, but admitted that he couldn't read. The literacy level of ordinary people was clearly very limited. He could only recognize a few simple words. The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. Then he said that if that were the case, she should read to him. He didn't like it when Lydia was sad or regretful about something that he didn't really care about. They sat down together and Lydia read a book aloud to him. Isaac said he would be very happy if Lydia taught him the alphabet. Lydia smiled and said that if nothing else could be done, then teaching would be the only option. The little girl was adorable. It was raining outside. Lydia went to the gardener's hut alone. Isaac, surprised, asked her what she was doing there. Lydia explained that he had once said he had nothing to do when it rained, so today she would teach him. Isaac thought that perhaps she had nothing to do either. He showed them where to rest and told them to wait, and if they were curious, they could look around a bit. A little while later, he returned with the teacups and apologized for keeping them waiting. Lydia sternly asked if he thought he could behave so brazenly. While waiting, Lydia restlessly paced around, curious about everything around her, a curiosity that seemed to be consuming her. Isaac said he wasn't sure if they would like it, but hoped they would try the herbal tea. The tea was made from herbs grown in the kitchen garden, using his mother's special recipe. The girls tasted the tea and said it was delicious. Isaac said his mother would be very happy to hear that. Lydia remarked that no matter how good the herbs were, the important thing was the way the tea was brewed, and that he should accept the compliment properly. Isaac felt praised, but Lydia said Catherine's tea was definitely better. Isaac suggested they not compare, as Catherine was the true master. Lydia said that now it was time to get back to the main point. Then she pulled an envelope from her sleeve and told him to open it immediately. He opened it and found it was the alphabet of the country of Arventrode. The first page was in capital letters. The second page was in lowercase. Indeed, Lady Lydia, in this world, paper and writing implements were luxuries, so much so that a commoner like him could never even dream of them. Isaac noticed her handwriting was beautiful. Lydia replied that it was only natural. Isaac asked her to teach him how to write properly. Lydia said she hadn't even thought of bringing paper and a pen. Isaac said it was okay because he had a way. He brought over a seed tray filled with soil, a wooden stick, and a small rake, and said that everything was now ready. Lydia asked him what he intended to do with them. He then wrote the words on the ground with a wooden stick, and then used a rake to erase them. That approach actually worked, surprising Lydia because she didn't expect him to be so clever, and Catherine nodded in agreement. Isaac felt their reaction was a bit excessive. Perhaps only an ordinary person could have come up with such an idea. Clearly, they had never used stones to draw circles on the ground to play hopscotch. Lydia should have been allowed to live like a normal child, able to play with her cousin and other children her age. She would surely have been very happy and loved that. But the working-class neighborhood is too dangerous for the young lady to enter, And even if she wanted to explore the outside world, the risk of being kidnapped would still be very high. I wish you could be strong enough to protect her from all danger. Lydia asked him what he was thinking and if anything was wrong. Isaac replied that nothing was wrong, everything was fine, then asked her to look after him and called her teacher. Lydia said that was the proper way to behave, so she would try to teach him. She suggested they start trying to write. Isaac agreed, and seeing Lydia leaning forward, he suggested she rest for a while. Lydia refused, saying that as a teacher she couldn't sleep, but as soon as she finished speaking, she drank all the tea, then leaned against Catherine's shoulder and fell asleep. She placed Lydia on the sofa, while Isaac and Catherine burst out laughing. Catherine thanked him for that. Isaac replied that he was the one who should apologize for his thoughtless behavior. This made things worse for everyone. Catherine said she was touched that a stranger had stood up to defend her, and then Lydia unleashed all her anger on him. Isaac recalled that not only Lydia but also her father had intervened. Catherine laughed and confessed that she wasn't as talented as her sisters and couldn't become the heir like her brother. Losing her job would cause a lot of trouble for the family. Lydia had once said that the head of the Lehar family was a baron, to the point that they didn't even have their own land. In families like theirs, it was perfectly normal for daughters to work for higher-ranking aristocrats or enter into political marriages. Because of her freckles, Catherine's father disowned her and sent her to work. If she were fired, she didn't know where her life would go. But now, serving Lady Lydia, Catherine said she couldn't be happier. Looking at them now, they look like two sisters. That incident, of course, is in the past. Isaac said she looked like a daisy, and when she smiled, it was like a daisy in full bloom. He said no one would marry her, that her father clearly had a problem with his eyesight. She said that wasn't the case, but Isaac thought it needed to be addressed. Lydia mumbled something in her sleep, and Isaac noticed that the young lady was fast asleep. Catherine explained that the young lady had stayed up late last night. Isaac asked why she wasn't asleep, and Catherine explained that the young lady had been writing and wouldn't give up until she was satisfied with the result. Isaac put the papers away and said he would keep them. His father called him, calling him Zach. He walked into the room and said it was time. Lydia woke up, Catherine greeted her good morning, and she was half asleep, wondering why she called him Zach. He said it was his nickname and that she could call him that. Lydia agreed. Then he remembered something and said that was incorrect. Isaac asked her what she was saying if something was wrong. She replied that her behavior was unbecoming of a duke's daughter. Isaac reminded her that she used to have such a sweet smile. She asked him to forget about it. The Duke wrote a letter and described his daughter, saying that she had begun to see him off with a smile on her face, very lovely with her shy demeanor and even somewhat endearing. The respectful butler addressed him and asked if he should be doing more work with his hands than with his words. The Duke joked that his hands were not for boredom, but the butler pointed out that if he had been a little quieter, he could have worked faster. The Duke said he would die if he didn't share his family's love with the world. Did the butler want him dead in the first place? He had insisted that the Duke not speak of this outside the mansion, and now he had to restrain himself in his work. The butler said that his admiration knew no bounds. The Duke agreed, for his love for his family was infinite. Butler Heinz frowned upon hearing this. He asked the Duke to consider his position and the opinions of others. Although he was a faithful husband, many women tried to seduce him without success, and the Duke always made decisions calmly. With a slight smile, he became known as the Ice Duke. There's another reason for this nickname. He possesses a rare ability with the two elements, water and wind, allowing him to use ice magic. His magical abilities far surpassed those of ordinary humans. With such talent, at the age of 24, he became the head of 3 departments: magic, medicine, and pharmaceuticals. This earned him the nickname San Shou Cho. Despite his high status, but there were no malicious rumors about the Duke, which was a sign of his competence. But many people don't know that the Ice Duke actually melts in the embrace of his family. As long as he had his family, he didn't care much about other people's opinions. Heinz said that when Lady Lydia heard how hard he was working, she was filled with joy and respect. The Duke exclaimed that he would do his best for his precious daughter. The Duke smiled and said he had a wonderful assistant. Heinz said he was the Duke's butler. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Lydia asked if her father was there. The Duke replied that it was an angel who had descended from heaven, incarnated as his Lydia. Heinz opened the door and said that this was outrageous. The Duke claimed he had simply spoken the truth. He asked what had happened and why she had come to see him while he was working. She said she had heard he didn't have much to do that day, so she thought they could visit Flora together. Only then did she ask if it would be a bother to him. The Duke thought it was a wonderful invitation. He would be delighted to spend time with his princesses, especially now that he had finished his letters. The butler wanted to know when he had finished his letters. They walked through the castle together, and the Duke apologized for being busy all day long. Lydia said she was happy to see her father working so hard. The Duke thought he felt happy now because he had done a good job, and he thought about how Dennis worked with Isaac. Lydia brought a book and said it was for Flora. Her father asked her again if it was too soon. Lydia replied that this was a different matter and she would show him later. The Duke said he would look forward to it. They entered Flora and Mama's room, and the Duke praised his wife, saying she was still as beautiful as ever, like a goddess. Lydia looked up from behind him and asked if she could come in. Via saw Gerald and Lydia. Via was delighted. She was sure Flora would be happy to see them. The Duke apologized for being late, and Via smiled brightly, saying she must have had urgent business. He then said that he had to write a few letters. His wife realized that this was true, and it was quite common. The Duke explained that although the demanding nature of the job did not bring him happiness, the only thing he desired was to be needed for his wife. Via smiled at that moment. Lydia played with Flora and said that Flora was lovely. They enjoyed their time together. The Duke suggested going for a walk as soon as the rain stopped. Lydia excitedly exclaimed that if they went, she knew a wonderful place to see hydrangeas. Her father agreed, saying she had done a good job exploring their garden. She admitted that she had been strolling there frequently lately. Gerlard asked Via if he had ever told her about Isaac. Lydia shrieked a warning. Via explained that she had heard from the maids that Lydia had been seen with a young gardener apprentice, and she was upset that Lydia hadn't spoken up herself. Lydia said that it was because she was afraid her mother would be upset, since he was a commoner. Via asked her if he was a close friend of hers. The little girl thought for a moment, then nodded. Via said she wanted to meet him. Lydia felt both happy and relieved. She promised that if Isaac was rude in any way, she would personally scold him. Her mother realized that they had become close enough to call each other by nicknames. Lydia yelled that her mother had completely misunderstood. Gerlard asked if he should start getting jealous of Isaac, while her mother said he must be a wonderful boy if she was so worried. Lydia yelled that everyone had misunderstood. Her mother and father laughed. While talking to her father, Lydia remembered she had something to say. She handed him the book and said that this was what she wanted to ask. Isaac suggested they write to each other in a diary. She knew her father was very busy, but this would also be a good way for her to practice her writing. She asked if this was a bad idea. Gerlard thanked God for giving him such a daughter. He said he was delighted and that they would begin their relationship today. Heinz took the diary and said he would take care of it. Gerlard was angry, saying it was a matter between him and Lydia. Heinz said he couldn't give it to him, but explained that he would return it when they had time. Lydia agreed because Gerlard had many responsibilities. Heinz left, taking the diary with him. Lydia, with tears in her eyes, called out to her father to go for a walk as promised. Gerlard agreed. Meanwhile, Isaac was in the kitchen. He looked at the chefs and asked how to become as strong as them. One of the chefs asked what had happened, if he'd been beaten up. Isaac replied that he hadn't fought with anyone. The chef then guessed it must have been because of a girl. Another chef was curious to know who it was. Another person guessed it was a young lady. Another chef advised him to stop daydreaming. Isaac immediately denied it. The chef then guessed it was probably a childhood friend who lived next door. Isaac thought they could say whatever they wanted, as if each of them had ever had a girlfriend. He just wanted to be stronger. A chef chuckled, patted him on the back, and said that this young bird, having just left the nest, already wanted to fly with the eagles. Someone walked into the room and asked what everyone was doing there. It was Heinz. One of the chefs said that Heinz arrived at the right time. This boy wanted to become strong, so he asked the old man to take care of him. Isaac realized that this was the Duke's butler. A chef explained that Mr. Heinz was truly very skilled. He began serving at the suggestion of the High Council of the Order of Knights. Heinz told him not to flatter him. Isaac wondered if a butler really needed to be that strong. Could he be a fighting butler like in the manga? Heinz suggested talking elsewhere and then left. He introduced himself as Heinz von Dreise. The boy replied that he was Isaac Baumgartner. Heinz said he knew. He asked why the boy wanted to be stronger. Isaac replied that he wanted to protect Lydia. Heinz was surprised. He asked Isaac to imagine that he and Miss Lydia fell into the hands of a group of villains. What would he do then? Isaac replied that he would grab her hand and run away. Heinz asked what he would do if he were alone. Isaac still replied that he would run. Heinz asked why. Isaac replied that they might have weapons and possibly accomplices, but without enough information about the enemy, a child like him couldn't do much. Therefore, he would run away and hide or find a safe place. Even if he were alone, he still wanted to protect those close to him. Heinz sighed, saying that was fine, then announced that Isaac would train with him for a few hours each week, once or twice. They would schedule it to fit Dennis's timetable. The job gave Isaac some exercise, but at his age he could do 50 push-ups, 50 squats, 50 sit-ups, and run 5 kilometers a day. Isaac was delighted. After a while, he sat in the garden and thought about what he really wanted to eat. Since he started training, the feeling of hunger had been constant between shifts. Before eating, he clasped his hands together and said a single word. Just then, Lydia approached and asked what he had said before the meal. After eating, Isaac had said another word. Lydia asked what he had said before and after the meal. Isaac explained that it was like a way of saying thank you for the meal. Lydia then asked what kind of thanks were being given. Isaac replied that they were thanking the king, thanking him for the food, thanking nature and people. Before eating, people usually thank the king, but they also knew that they were able to eat thanks to people and nature. Lydia said that he thought in a rather unusual way. Isaac explained that everyone in the house was used to it, but it was a long-standing habit. Lydia thought that it was actually right and a good idea. Isaac smiled. Lydia asked why he was laughing. He said he simply liked the way she listened to him so attentively. Then he asked if she had come just for that, or if something else had come up. Lydia said that her mother wanted him to come for tea at 3 o'clock, so he should get ready then. Then she ran off. Isaac wondered whether he should prepare himself for a reprimand or something else. Later, Isaac went to Lydia's house and they sat at the table drinking tea. Lydia's mother held baby Flora in her arms and smiled. Isaac had absolutely no idea what was happening. Shouldn't the atmosphere of an afternoon tea be more relaxed? He felt awkward, and Lydia seemed a little embarrassed. Isaac thanked them for the invitation. He was truly impressed to have the opportunity to enjoy the famous black tea infused with fruit for the first time. Lydia's mother was pleased that he enjoyed it and told him not to hesitate if he wanted more, and she also hoped to see him again. Lydia's failure to introduce them sooner was regrettable, and she wished she could be as close to Isaac as she was to Gerlard. It wasn't fair that only Lydia's father knew him. Isaac said he would be happy to visit them. Lydia's mother happily explained that it was thanks to him that Lydia had started wearing dresses in colors that suited her better. He noticed how well their colors complemented each other. Lydia was wearing a lilac dress, while the Duchess was wearing purple. He recalled the first time he'd met Lydia, when she was wearing a bright red dress. Lydia's mother had said that, despite Lydia's stubbornness, it was Isaac who had changed her. Lydia shouted that no one could make her change. Isaac turned to Lydia's mother and addressed her as Mrs. Octavia, but Lydia's mother asked if he wasn't tired of saying it all the time, and suggested he just call her Via. Isaac admitted he didn't like long names either. Shorter names were easier. But he also noticed that Lydia was looking at him with disapproval. It seemed she didn't want a commoner like him to call her mother in such a familiar way. Octavia asked Lydia why she didn't just let Isaac call her D-I-A if she was jealous. Lydia insisted she wasn't. So her mother said that if that's the case, then let him call her that. Like a mother cat teasing her grumpy kitten. Lydia wouldn't be happy about it, but it seemed he needed to call the Duchess by a simpler name, though he didn't want to upset her. He suggested to her mother that he call her Madam. Lydia yelled at him to stop calling her mother by that strange nickname. Lydia's mother laughed and said she liked the name. Lydia blushed again. Isaac told Lydia to pass him the cup, but Lydia said that he already had his own cup. Isaac insisted and asked if it was really that difficult. Finally, Lydia handed him a cup of tea, and he thanked her. He held the cup in his hand for a few minutes. Before handing it back to Lydia, Lydia took a sip and noticed the tea had cooled. She asked him how the tea had cooled down so quickly since it had been hot before. Isaac explained that he had only cooled the tea using magic, and then asked Lydia if she liked iced tea, and if it truly made her feel relaxed. Lydia then asked him how he managed to use magic silently, especially ice magic. Did he have a knack for using 2 elements? Isaac denied it, saying he could only use elements other than his primary one to a limited extent. After water, all his remaining mana was transferred into wind. Via said this was the first time she'd seen someone use magic outside of their elemental abilities. Lydia asked why he did it without making a sound, how he could use magic without calling out its name. Isaac explained that he was simply asking the spirits for help. Lydia asked how they could help instead of summoning them with her own power. Isaac replied that he didn't have the power to summon them. He couldn't even see them. Via explained that the status of nobility depended on the amount of mana they could use to summon and control spirits. Therefore, the idea that spirits could help themselves was unimaginable. Isaac said he didn't know, but he thought there were a lot of problems with this aristocratic class. He asked if he was being strange. Via and Lydia said that wasn't the right word. Isaac thought Lydia was fine, and Via thought so too. His mother and father hadn't said anything like that, so he didn't think it was strange. Lydia was curious, so she asked how he was able to get the spirits to help him. Isaac said they were used to it. Lydia didn't understand what familiarity meant. Isaac explained that it required respect. Spirits like to be shown respect. Lydia wondered if that was all. Isaac added that offerings were also necessary. Lydia asked what the offerings were. Isaac glanced at her. When he was very young, his mother had told him about spirits. He couldn't see them, but when he tried to find out if spirits ate candy, he discovered they did. There were 3 cookies on the plate. Isaac closed his eyes, clasped his hands together, and when he opened his eyes, he saw that the cookie had been bitten. Lydia and Via were surprised. He asked them if they saw spirits and said it was funny that sharing sweets with spirits had become a habit. Lydia said it was great. Isaac suggested she try it. She just needs to think that she's offering it to them and they'll understand. Lydia agreed, closed her eyes, clasped her hands together, bowed her head, and then opened her eyes. And she saw the little spirit eating her cookies. Lydia was surprised that she had managed to do that. My mother laughed and said it would be strange for the soul to gain weight, so it's best not to overindulge. They finished their tea and my mother admitted that she was genuinely glad Isaac was there. Isaac asked if he could hold little Flora. His mother agreed, saying that she had been holding Flora since the tea ceremony began, so she could no longer feel her hands. She thanked Isaac and gave Flora to him. Lydia exclaimed that she wanted to hold Flora too. Isaac said she should wait until Flora learned to hold her head. Lydia felt it was unfair and asked if he had any siblings, as he didn't seem used to it. He said he was an only child. In neighboring families, both parents usually worked, so the children were often left in his care. Neighbors often asked him to look after their children. Via smiled and said that he would make a wonderful son-in-law. Isaac didn't understand what she was saying, and Via laughed again, telling him to ignore her and just help her naturally. Isaac thanked her, and he realized that in front of him was an empty plate. Behind it were some cookies, and in his hands was Lydia's sister. He knew he was trapped and looked at Lydia with a questioning gaze. Lydia asked him what he wanted from her. He asked for a cookie. Lydia blushed. Isaac realized he was so hungry he'd said something silly. He apologized and explained that it was because of Flora. Lydia gave him a cookie. He opened his mouth and Lydia placed the cookie inside. He took a bite, ate it, and thanked Lydia. She gave him another one, and Isaac asked if that was okay. Lydia nodded. He thanked her and ate another piece of cake. He thought he'd have to bring something to thank her next time. He went outside. He was recognized by the children on the street. They asked if he had work to do and invited him to play. He said he was on his day off. A little girl asked him what he had just been doing. Isaac explained that he had been training to improve his strength, meeting Heinz's standards. Someone smirked and said he was weak and scrawny. Isaac explained that he had only just begun. The girl asked why he had started training so suddenly. Isaac didn't know the big reason. The girl reported that she smelled the scent of a girl, the only child of a working-class family. The girl's name was Maria. A 4-year-old child shouldn't say that. They started laughing, saying that was spot on. Isaac, accused of being a womanizer, retorted, "So what?" He asked the other boys if they also wanted to protect their mothers and sisters. So what was wrong with being stronger for a woman? A boy who works in the labor class, Johann, says he will become strong because of his mother. Paul said he would get rid of his sister's boyfriend. Johann suggested playing at night to become stronger. Isaac said he couldn't. His mother had a lot of work to do. Maria felt guilty, but decided she would pretend to be fooled. But only this time. Isaac asked her what she was talking about. Then he went home and asked his mother if she had asked him to buy anything else, and if he could get some more flour and eggs. When his mother asked why, Isaac said he wanted to bake cookies and bring them to Lydia. They had offered him tea and pastries, so he wanted to thank them to show his gratitude to Lydia. His mother was surprised to hear him speak of the Duke's daughter. She asked what kind of person the little girl was. Isaac explained that the girl's moods changed constantly, but she was also very sweet and lovely. My mother remarked that he was indeed her father's son, then asked if he knew why she married him. He didn't say much, but he was always sweet and charming, and he often bought things for her. That's why she fell in love with him. So she told Isaac to be careful. He asked what he should be careful about. His mother explained that he shouldn't say things that could be misunderstood. Isaac replied that he was only saying what he really thought. His mother thought that was the problem. She took him shopping and allowed him to take some eggs and flour. Isaac went outside and decided to get the eggs first. Then he saw potatoes and heard people talking about something. They were looking at something, a strange light. No one understood what was glowing there. Isaac pushed his way to the front and also saw a flash of light. There was a boy standing there. Blonde hair was rare among commoners, so he was probably a nobleman. Isaac asked the boy if he was lost, but he didn't say anything. Isaac asked again, but the boy remained silent, only later speaking up to say that he had gone outside intentionally. But now he didn't know the way home, so he was probably lost. Everything around him was sparkling and dazzling. Isaac said something must be wrong. The light was so strong that people had to squint to see. The boy apologized. Isaac took off his hat and pulled it over the boy's head, saying there was no need to apologize. He just didn't like things that were too unusual. But wearing the hat would be much more comfortable. Isaac took the boy's hand and invited him to come along. The boy asked where he was going. Isaac explained that they could find someone the boy knew on the main road, as he was also planning to meet an acquaintance. He said he had actually been told that if anything happened, he should go to the square with the fountain. Isaac suggested going there. He led the way and pulled the boy along. The boy then asked how Isaac knew he was a nobleman. Isaac explained that it was obvious from his clothes, but the boy said he had deliberately bought the simplest outfit, without any fringes or decorations. Isaac told him he should wear a wig, since commoners rarely have blonde hair. The boy said he would be more careful next time. Isaac offered to lend him his clothes if he needed them again, just by saying so. The boy asked if that was true, then said that he wasn't supposed to associate with commoners. Isaac then revealed his name was Isaac. His father, Dennis, was a gardener, so pretending to need to see him would make it easier to find him. The boy remembered that he knew the Duke's gardener. He immediately praised Isaac for being very intelligent. Isaac told him not to stare at him anymore because he was too dazzling. The boy said this was the first time he had met someone like Isaac, and he had had many new experiences. Isaac said he should have been annoyed because this boy was suspiciously strange, too kind, to the point that Lydia would have screamed. The boy explained that his father had taught him to look at the world from different perspectives. He said that it was important to keep an open mind to new things. That's why he came here today to observe the lives of ordinary people. He remembered Lydia, who, despite belonging to the upper class of nobility, was still too young to face the hateful and contemptuous stares. Isaac told the boy that he was surrounded by adults, and therefore children from aristocratic families couldn't live like normal children. The boy asked how Isaac knew that, and Isaac replied that the boy's tone was too mature, and that he should have more friends and play more. The boy thought about the word friends. Then he shook Isaac's hand and asked if he could be friends with Isaac. Isaac grinned broadly but declined. Not just because the boy was too flashy, but also because of several other things that bothered him. He didn't like the boy's appearance, nor did he like the way he thought like an adult, believing it was necessary. The boy laughed, saying he never expected to be so harshly rejected just because of his appearance. Isaac realized that this boy was indeed very strange. The boy laughed again, saying that no one had ever told him that, then suddenly remembered that he hadn't introduced himself. He took off his hat and said his name was Leo. Isaac said that he was too dazzling, which annoyed him. He pulled Leo along with him, and they both ran down the street, suddenly spotting hydrangeas in full bloom. But something is wrong. White hydrangeas are very rare. This was the first time Isaac had seen them in this country. These flowers can change color depending on their proximity to magical elements. They are usually orange when influenced by the earth element, or blue due to the water element. An old man who owned a flower shop once said that the Ministry of Magic had tasked him with researching the correlation between the colors of hydrangeas and the elements in order to increase diversity. Leo nodded, saying he knew they were rare, but asked what element made them white. Isaac didn't have time to answer. Then the door swung open, and a girl poked her head out and asked what they wanted with her family. Isaac saw the astonished look on Leo's face as he gazed at the girl, and couldn't understand why the boy was so shocked. The girl was very cute, but Leo didn't look like an ordinary person who had just come out of the circus. Isaac bowed his head in apology, explaining that he was a gardening apprentice and that these flowers were truly rare. The little girl then asked why the flowers were rare. Isaac asked if her house always had white hydrangeas like that every year, and who took care of them. The little girl replied that she did it herself. Isaac felt as if he had cornered her with a series of questions, as if he were nibbling at the timidity of a small animal. He gently stroked the little girl's head, explaining that it was the first time he'd seen white hydrangeas, and he just wanted to know how they were grown. They were truly beautiful. The little girl trembled with fear, then mumbled that she was only watering the plants. Isaac was surprised and then realized that this little girl was even more special than he had thought. He turned to Leo and asked what was wrong with him, then patted him lightly on the back of the head, asking why he was acting so strangely. Leo said it was nothing and told me not to worry about it. Isaac thanked the little girl for showing them the beautiful flowers, then told Leo to leave. The girl bowed her head, saying they were always welcome. She waved goodbye. Isaac thought to himself that perhaps he should ask about the girl's element, but Leo said it wasn't necessary. She possesses a vast amount of magical power. Hua reacted not to the earth, but to her own magical power. This meant her magic was stronger than a certain threshold, which was extremely rare among ordinary people. Isaac asked what her element was. Leo replied that he had never seen anything like it before, but it could be light or something else. A young man ran up from the corner, breathless and shouting that he had finally found them, asking Leo where he had been and why he hadn't seen him until now. He looked over at Isaac and asked who was with Leo. Leo said this was his escort. Then he turned to Isaac and asked for permission to introduce them. He said this was his brother. Isaac thought to himself that they didn't look alike at all. Matthias thanked Isaac for helping find his younger brother, saying the boy had scared him to death. Isaac thought to himself that they certainly weren't brothers. Matthew offered to thank him, but Isaac declined, thinking the man was probably a servant or bodyguard. He said he still had to go shopping and would be leaving. Isaac took the hat off Leo's head, saying it was his, put it back on his own, said goodbye to Leo, and left. He waved goodbye, promising to see him again, but I also wondered if Leo wanted to continue getting to know me, because that boy is too strange to become too close to. The immediate task is to buy potatoes and eggs, and then when we get home, we'll bake cookies for the young lady. Meanwhile, Lydia was in the kitchen and was being refused help by the chef. She asked why Isaac was allowed, but she wasn't. The chef replied that there was a difference between her and the boy. It wouldn't matter if he got a little injured, but if she got hurt, he would be in big trouble. Lydia said she understood. Then she quietly walked out, closing the door behind her. The chef thought to himself that the young lady had truly changed since that student appeared. Lydia wondered how she could repay him if she couldn't bake the cake herself. That evening they met again. Isaac gave Lydia a bag and told her to take it. She asked what was inside, and he reminded her that she used to give him cookies with every tea, so he had made some at home as a thank you. He said they came out of the oven a bit big, perhaps not very convenient to eat, but he would be happy if she tried them and let him know what they tasted like. Lydia took a bite and praised it. It was delicious, unlike the cakes in the shop, with a unique and wonderful flavor. She was surprised that Isaac could make something so good. When he asked if she liked it, Lydia remained silent, thinking to herself that she absolutely had to reciprocate. But she wondered what Isaac liked. All she knew was that he liked gardening. He greatly valued his father's opinion and was very happy when eating. And I hate shiny things, that's all. Actually, she didn't know much about Isaac at all. She thought he wouldn't say anything about her and wouldn't answer unless she asked. So don't blame her if she doesn't know anything about him. She's determined to dig up everything she needs to know. Then Lydia went to Isaac's garden. He asked his father if he could go with her. Then he took her hand and pulled her along. Lydia asked where they were going. Isaac told her to just follow him. They would be there soon. He held her hand tighter. Lydia felt his hand was warmer and larger than her own. They were almost there, just a little further. They approached a thicket of bushes. Isaac called her to follow and told her to catch up. Lydia couldn't imagine having to cross here, but she continued climbing, although she wondered why a noblewoman had to climb like this. Isaac said she was almost there. Something very bright was shining out in front of them, causing her to squint. Isaac pointed out a magnificent fountain and said it was his. Lydia wondered if the garden had ever had this feature before. Isaac explained that his grandfather and father had trained here when they were students, and now his father allowed him to have a place to learn. This is where a generation of gardeners learned their trade. There are so many things he wants to try, so he'll use his savings to buy seeds. Lydia asked if it was all right that Isaac had told her all this, as she guessed she had thought it would be a secret. She said that begging wouldn't help, and asked if it was possible to turn the place into a garden she liked. Isaac asked her to keep this a secret, as he had already received so much from her. He thanked Lydia and promised that this would be a wonderful place. Isaac said this was the best birthday gift he had ever received from his father. Lydia asked when his birthday was, and Isaac replied that it was in May. Lydia realized that was also a month ago. She asked him what he would like as a gift. Isaac said he had already received too much from her. The letter she wrote by hand made him very happy. It was his treasure. Moreover, he always felt happy when he saw her smile. Lydia smiled and wished him a happy birthday. She was smiling at him right now. Isaac thanked her. Lydia and Isaac are reading books. Lydia said that he read without any expression, and that he needed to put his heart into it. Even Catherine did better than him. He asked if she could read on her own, but Lydia replied that she couldn't. He wouldn't learn anything. Lydia gave the book to Isaac and said they would read this one next. Isaac said that he hoped they would continue reading seriously, that he felt tired, flipped through the book and said that all her books were about princes. Lydia explained that it was because they revolved around breaking curses and defeating evil spirits, which was quite romantic. Isaac asked why they all had shiny hair. She explained that this was characteristic of the royal family. Isaac recalled that the Duke's hair was also shiny. Lydia explained that her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, was a queen, and therefore always had a noble appearance, which is why the Duke exuded such radiance. As for her, her hair was much more beautiful than that shine, and it didn't hurt her eyes. Isaac agreed and began to read. This time he would try to put more emotion into his reading. Lydia got angry and told him he had to read for the rest of his life, until the end of the century, in the same monotonous way. Catherine giggled and asked if it was just a curse. Catherine tells Lydia that Via is calling her. Lydia goes into her mother's room and asks what she wants to talk to her about. Via informed her daughter that she had received an invitation. Isaac was pulling weeds in the garden. The heat was unbearable, and he couldn't escape them. The work seemed endless. He wished he had an assistant. The property wasn't inherited, which is why it was so large in the capital. They said it was a real test for gardeners, those who wanted to work without close supervision, so he was the only apprentice. He thought perhaps singing could lift his spirits. In his previous life, his older sister used to make him sing karaoke with her. Lydia approached him and said that spirits really liked songs. Isaac asked if she could see them here. He couldn't see them, but he could feel their presence, a spirit playing behind his head. Lydia confirmed this and asked what song he had just whistled. Was it a war song or an opera? Isaac replied that it was an anime song. Lydia asked what anime was, and he said that his sister had taught him, so he wasn't really sure, but it sounded like a song sung during battle. Lydia then asked him which sister he was talking about if he wasn't an only child. Isaac was startled and blurted out without thinking that she came from a previous life, so she was like an older sister to him. Lydia realized that he had such a person in his life. Isaac couldn't tell if she was angry or not. He asked her what had happened and what she wanted to tell him. She took out an envelope saying she had received an invitation that her mother had given her today. This is an invitation to the Crown Prince's birthday party. Isaac was surprised and wished her good luck. Finally, she had the chance to meet the prince in his natural environment. But now was not the time to worry about that. This will be her first public appearance, her debut at the Crown Prince's birthday party, and she doesn't even know how to dance properly. Isaac assured her that everything would be all right. She asked how everything could be all right. Isaac said that she was wonderful, everything would be all right. She was the Duke's most precious daughter. Lydia asked again if this was true and whether her parents wouldn't be disappointed. Isaac said they would be proud of her. Lydia then asked, would everything really be all right? He told her not to worry and to just be herself. She asked him if he really meant it. Isaac said there was nothing to worry about. It was just a little unusual. Lydia said that wasn't a compliment. Isaac wasn't used to seeing Lydia like this. She was so nervous that Isaac had to remind her to enjoy the party. Lydia took his hand, calling him to come with her. She seemed genuinely worried. Isaac reminded her that the Duke would also be there, but Lydia said she would feel more at ease if he accompanied her. However, Isaac refused because he was just an ordinary citizen and couldn't go there. She understood this, and he added that even in formal attire, he would still look like nothing more than a scarecrow. Lydia laughed, apologizing for asking such an impossible question. He told her not to worry about it anymore and asked why she was so concerned. She explained that because of her status, she had the opportunity to dance with the crown prince. But her dance teacher was never satisfied with her progress, so she worried about becoming a poor dance partner. There was only a month left until the ball. Isaac advised her to relax and promised to help her prepare, but she didn't want her parents to know she was hiding her failure. Isaac promised to keep the lessons a secret and said he knew an ideal place where they would surely succeed. Lydia was surprised to find out they would be practicing dancing secretly together. Isaac led Lydia to a place and asked her what she thought of it. An abandoned summer house. Lydia agreed. This place was truly ideal for practicing dancing in secret. The house was next to a secluded building that was rarely used, and because it was out of season, it wasn't really considered a holiday home anymore. Isaac believed everything would be fine. Lydia asked if he was trying to encourage her, and if so, to be her dance partner. Isaac confessed that he didn't know how to dance, but Lydia promised to teach him the basics because the best dance partner is someone of similar height. Isaac said that wasn't his idea, but because of Lydia, he would agree. At other times, they practiced combat with Heinz. When the lesson ended, he said that was enough for the day. Isaac thought to himself that he wasn't even sweating, perhaps because his sweat glands had been taken away along with his emotions. Heinz noticed that Isaac's posture had improved significantly, and asked if he had any more exercises to do. Isaac hesitated, then said that he had started warming up for weight training. Heinz was surprised and encouraged him to keep up the good work. From then on, he and Lydia spent the time they used to spend chatting, practicing together. During the lessons, Isaac always wore an apron to avoid soiling Lydia's clothes. He diligently studied the basic steps of the waltz, which is probably why his posture improved. Then, one day before the scheduled time, he asked Lydia if he could be of any help to her. She replied that of course she did. She usually practiced on her own, but with him around, she had clearly become a better dancer. Isaac was delighted to hear that. Although Lydia was still worried, he said that the lessons were very helpful, and he was very grateful to her. Then Isaac said that he had prepared a small gift. As a reward for her, a lucky charm. Since he couldn't go with her, he gave her this charm, made from a small rose from a greenhouse. Although the ribbon used to tie it was quite cheap, he said she could throw it away if she didn't like it, but Lydia insisted that she would never throw it away, because the gift was wonderful. She promised to do her best tomorrow. Isaac told her not to worry too much, as she would soon meet the prince. Lydia also promised that everything would be all right, and that if anything happened, she would feel reassured just thinking of Isaac, as if introducing him to the world. Isaac thought Lydia was being a little condescending, but Lydia said that it was actually her way of complimenting him. Isaac didn't fully understand all the dances, the glamorous balls, and the luxuries that the aristocracy valued, but he hoped that the feelings he had poured into the amulet would be able to give Lydia strength. He sincerely hoped that she would be able to dance the most wonderful dance with the prince at this ball. Lydia's father apologized to her, saying they should have arrived after afternoon tea, but since Flora was born, things haven't been the same. Lydia told her father he didn't need to apologize because she was genuinely happy to have another sister. When the carriage stopped in front of the palace, the Duke extended his hand and invited his daughter to get out of the car, addressing her as princess. Lydia pointed out that saying such things in front of the crown prince wouldn't be very polite. Her father agreed and joked that he would call her an angel then. A murmur of conversation arose behind them. People around them began whispering that it was Duke Ernst, the head of the 3 ministries of the court. Someone exclaimed that he was as handsome as the rumors said. Someone asked who the young lady accompanying them was, saying she looked like a cute doll. The father and son entered the palace amidst whispers and murmurs. The Duke noticed that Lydia wasn't as nervous as he'd thought, but Lydia replied that she was actually very worried about making a mistake in front of the royal family. It's just that when her father is around, she feels more secure. That makes him proud. Lydia squeezed her father's hand, and he said they could leave whenever she wanted, but he himself thought they should leave now. Lydia realized they hadn't even congratulated the prince yet. Her father sighed, saying he didn't want her to meet that person. When Lydia asked why, the Duke explained that he had only met the prince briefly once, but from what he heard, the prince had an impeccable reputation. Despite his young age, he was incredibly intelligent and always thought seriously about people. If the prince continued like this, it was rumored that he would become the wisest king. Lydia said she had heard that the prince had brilliant hair and eyes, but what impressed her even more was his extraordinary inner world. Her father nodded in acknowledgement, but she still didn't want to go near him. When he saw the ribbon with a rose on Lydia's hand, he asked why she had never worn it before. Lydia explained it was a lucky charm. The Duke smiled, remarking that she was lovely and that Isaac seemed to know exactly what suited her best, causing Lydia to blush. Using water magic to create the opposite effect of dried flowers is a fascinating application of magic, an extremely difficult and labor-intensive feat. Her father said it was some kind of amazing magic, and perhaps they should ask the boy how he did it. Lydia asked why, and the Duke realized he had been somewhat tactless. He remarked that she had a wonderful friend, and Lydia nodded in agreement. As the father and daughter entered the hall, someone called out the Duke's name and asked if he had also come today. It was Zinvarka, and he inquired whether the Duke had accompanied his daughter. He told Lydia that Zinvarka was the Royal Knight of the Royal Order, his full name being Zinvarka von August. Zinvarka expressed his honor to be introduced to a young lady like her. Lydia introduced herself as Lydia von Ernst and said she had heard her father mention Zinvarka leaving his post. Zinvarka laughed, saying that it happened when they were still under his protection. Lydia and a young girl accompanying Zinvarka exchanged glances, and he introduced her as his daughter, Tordelise. The girl politely introduced herself as Tordelise, the eldest daughter of the Marquis of August, and said it was an honor to meet the daughter of the Duke of Ernst. The Duke smiled, complimented her on being like a little rabbit, and told her not to be too nervous. Zinvarka immediately told the Duke not to seduce his daughter with that face, and the Duke just laughed, saying that he only seduced his wife. Lydia told Tordelise that this was the first time she had had the opportunity to chat with a young lady her own age, and she would be delighted to be friends with Tordelise. Tordelise took Lydia's hand and said that she did not deserve the honor of being with her. Zinvarka and Gerlard glanced around the room. It was clear that the number of men and women was fairly balanced. If they were adults, this scene might look a bit outdated. Gerlard said he didn't bring Via along because Flora was too young. Zinvarka also said he was there because Tordelise wanted to meet His Highness. As welcoming music played, all idle chatter ceased, and everyone bowed respectfully. Princess Gertrude, first daughter, Princess Germaine, second daughter, Prince Klaus, third son, and the King of Traugott appeared in the Great Hall. The king asked the ladies and gentlemen to raise their heads. "Thank you for attending my son's birthday party, and I hope you all enjoyed the celebration." He said he had already stolen too much of the spotlight from the star of the day, so without further ado, he introduced the main character of the ceremony. A boy stepped out, radiating a brilliant light from all directions. The guests applauded in unison to welcome them. The boy said his name was Roy Leohard and thanked everyone for coming to celebrate his birthday in this sweltering heat. He may be young and immature, but he hopes he can help his father and benefit everyone. He hopes that everyone will use their strength to contribute to the country, and he is also grateful for the opportunity to meet his peers, those who will become the pillars of the nation in the future. He suggested they discuss the future of the kingdom together. Everyone applauded enthusiastically. Zinvarka realized that what he was doing was mesmerizing others with his appearance. Gerlard, however, thought he was the only one who thought so. He also noticed Lydia looking at the prince with admiration and began to fear that she would no longer call him the greatest. Zinvarka told him he should be glad that at least she had said so before. The prince descended into the great hall, approached the Duke, and asked if he was indeed Duke Ernst. He confirmed this and said it was a great honor to be known by the prince. They expressed their joy at being able to wish him a happy birthday. The young man thanked him and said he had heard much about his achievements. He looked wonderful today. The master of ceremonies felt honored, especially to hear such praise from such distinguished guests. Everyone is watching them. The prince noticed the girl standing beside him and asked who she was. The Duke replied that she was his daughter, Lydia. The little girl introduced herself as Lydia von Ernst and wished the prince a happy birthday. The prince looked at her carefully. Then he asked if he could invite her to dance. Lydia replied that she would be honored. They danced together. The prince remarked that she was a wonderful dancer. He was not wrong to choose her as his first dance partner. Lydia was surprised to learn it was the prince's first time, saying that he seemed very experienced. The prince explained that he had taken private lessons. She said that was just like her. Young noblemen don't have many opportunities for social interaction. He had begged his father for this chance tonight. Although she felt she was being taken advantage of, it's understandable. Lydia listened attentively to what he said, but he said that the adults wouldn't hear, so she could talk freely, and then suggested she call him by his name. She smiled, said she understood, and called him Roy. The prince was delighted to hear this and believed that Lydia was indeed the right choice. Lydia asked why he had chosen her. He replied that it was because she had spoken to him in a different way. He had interacted with a few people before, but they were either too enthusiastic or too serious in their conversations. Just when he was about to give up, he met her, and thanks to her, he didn't lose hope. Lydia thanked him, remembering Isaac had once said that having a friend to talk to is incredibly important. Lydia said she was also happy to talk to him. They finished the dance and received applause from everyone around them. After the ball on the way home, Lydia asked her father if she had behaved impolitely. Her father replied that she was an exceptionally beautiful lady today. The prince turned out to be even more amiable than the rumors suggested, and thanks to that lucky charm, she remained completely calm in front of Roy and throughout the dance. Then her father asked if she would be happy to become the crown prince's fiancée. Lydia couldn't believe it, thinking it was just a fairy tale, and said it would be a dream come true. Her father then explained that in fact today was not just an ordinary birthday. The prince was permitted to be there on that birthday. They chose a potential candidate for the position of princess consort, and Lydia was the one who was selected. She was completely surprised to learn that she was a candidate for the crown prince's future wife. She said that today was supposed to be just a birthday party. Her father confirmed that, of course, that was the main purpose. But the king had arranged this party with intentions going much further than that. Lydia suddenly remembered the prince saying that he felt he was being used. Perhaps he knew, but still chose to show up. Her father said that they are currently only in the discussion stage, but if Lydia wants to, he fully supports her. That night, Lydia went to bed. The soft chirping of birds could be heard outside the window. But she couldn't fall asleep at all. Since becoming a candidate for the position of princess consort, everything around her has seemed to blur, as if she were living in an unreal dream. Her father used to say that whatever decision she made, he would immediately follow it. If she didn't want to, he would refuse on her behalf. But he could not defy the king's will. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Catherine walked in and wished Lydia good morning. She remarked that Lydia looked very tired and announced that Isaac wouldn't be coming today. Catherine then asked if Lydia would like to rest a little after lunch. Lydia was saddened that Isaac didn't come, but deep down, even if he did show up, she wasn't sure she wanted to see him right now. The painting on the wall seemed to be looking at her and asking why the young lady couldn't express her feelings clearly. Lydia couldn't answer. Instead of running away, she decided to go find him. She met Isaac in the garden. He asked how the ball had gone and whether she had danced well. Lydia replied that even her father had praised her, and moreover, she had made a friend. Isaac smiled and complimented her on doing a good job. He then asked if she had met the wild prince. Lydia hesitated, then said that he was wonderful, like something out of a painting in a book. She was about to say something more to Isaac. Her lips parted slightly, but then she changed her mind and said nothing more. As night fell, Lydia stepped out onto the balcony, the soft moonlight illuminating her troubled face. She wondered why she couldn't bring herself to tell Isaac that she was a candidate for the position of princess. Until today, she had always told him everything, but this time, she had kept it a secret. Lydia didn't understand what was happening to her. She was happy to be chosen, but she couldn't understand why it prevented her from speaking to Isaac. And because she didn't speak up from the beginning, now she has even less idea where to begin. Catherine approached and gently asked if it was unusual that Lydia hadn't told Isaac. Then she smiled softly and said, "No, that's perfectly normal. Lydia doesn't need to tell everyone everything. Sharing her deepest feelings is her right. Lydia may have felt guilty for keeping it a secret, but even if she didn't, that doesn't mean it's a secret." She asked Lydia, "Do you want to tell Isaac?" Lydia is still not sure. Catherine gently squeezed Lydia's hand, apologizing for not being able to help more, but she promised, "I will always stand by Lydia, regardless of what she decides." Lydia thanked Catherine and said that she felt much better now, although she couldn't share everything yet. But one day, she would definitely tell Isaac everything. Isaac ran into Leo on the street again. Leo apologized for being late. Isaac called him an idiot and asked what kind of letter it was. Leo asked again if Isaac had told him to send the letter. Isaac admitted that he couldn't read it and told Leo not to overestimate the abilities of ordinary people. Leo said that he hadn't thought of that. He really was an idiot. You really should have written the letter more clearly because Isaac couldn't read it anyway. But if Leo came here to learn about the lives of ordinary people, then that's enough. Leo promised that he would do his best. Isaac noticed Leo's radiant smile, even a slight one, which annoyed him. Incidentally, he realized Leo was wearing a wig and had bodyguards with him. Leo chuckled, asking if he really did look more like his brother Matthews now. Isaac noticed that Leo looked much better this time than before, but his clothes didn't suit him at all. He told Leo to follow him. When Leo asked where they were going, Isaac replied that he would take him home. When they arrived, Isaac's mother greeted them with a kind smile. She said that their family wasn't wealthy, but she hoped Leo would feel completely at home. She also mentioned that Isaac had brought a noble friend home, and she had imagined that the first noble guest to arrive would be a young lady, not a boy. Isaac quickly replied that the city streets weren't safe for such a beautiful young lady, and Leo wasn't his friend. Then he turned to Leo and told him to follow. He would lend Leo some clothes. Leo followed Isaac upstairs to his room. Isaac took out some civilian clothes and gave them to Leo to try on. He said he would wait outside and Leo could call him if he needed anything. Isaac stood outside the door, waiting for Leo to change his clothes. Leo called out that Isaac was very kind. Isaac wondered why. Leo explained that even though the name he was using might be fake, Isaac still treated him politely, let him into his house, and knew his real name without suspecting anything. Even though they weren't friends, Isaac still welcomed him kindly. Isaac replied that if Leo asked that, then he clearly couldn't be a bad person. If Isaac's true identity were a mystery, Matthew wouldn't have let him accompany him. Surely the nobility had ways of investigating those they helped. He helps Leo simply because the boy causes trouble and therefore is very much like him. Leo chuckled, saying he liked being called a troublemaker. Isaac thought he had a strange sense of humor. Then he apologized and admitted that Leo really was weird, to put it simply. Leo left the room, dressed in civilian clothes, and smiled, saying he was really happy to have met Isaac. Isaac stood watching him without saying anything. He just thought to himself that this was unfair. These were his clothes, yet Leo looked great in everything he wore. Suddenly a voice apologized. They both turned around and saw Maria, a local child, standing there. Maria asked who they were. Leo smiled, called the little girl Maria, and said it was a beautiful name. He was very happy to meet her. Isaac said it was Leo, which confused Maria. The little girl quickly shouted that it wasn't what Isaac was thinking. Leo just smiled and said that, in fact, he had already lost to Isaac. Isaac asked if Leo wanted to play with the children or just watch from the sidelines. After a moment of thought, Leo said he'd rather play than just watch. Isaac nodded in agreement and called Leo outside. On the street, a few other boys saw Leo and asked who he was, as they had never met him before. Leo introduced himself, saying it was nice to meet them. The boys started to get acquainted. Paul and Johan also introduced themselves. They asked Isaac if they were right to think Leo was his friend. Isaac quickly replied that he wasn't. Leo laughed, not at all angry, and asked if they wanted to play. Johan yelled that he wouldn't go easy on Leo just because he was Isaac's friend. Leo laughed and thanked him, looking quite excited. Then, Johan challenged Leo to a hide-and-seek contest, but Leo admitted that he wasn't very familiar with the area. Leo said that was why he came with Isaac, to be able to explore the streets while simultaneously evading enemies, completing a mission with 2 objectives. Isaac felt Leo was taking the game too seriously, but they both wondered where the ideal hiding place would be. They realized there were 2 of them, and they were too big to easily find a hiding spot. Suddenly, they saw a group of patrolling soldiers passing through the streets. Isaac asked Leo if he knew them. Leo replied that he did, and that it would be bad for him if they found out. However, there was nowhere to hide. Isaac pointed to the other side where he thought they might be hiding. They hurried into an alley, Isaac shielding Leo to avoid making any noise until the soldiers passed. In the darkness, they hid, with the shadowy figures of the phantoms providing cover. Isaac whispered that they might be able to help with their concealment. The group of soldiers walked by, talking amongst themselves about how standing guard during holidays, surrounded by so much food, was pure torture. They were sure the wine today was excellent. It was a royal celebration. Finally, one of them said they were on duty and asked everyone to keep their opinions to themselves. Isaac and Leo noticed that they seemed to have left. Leo apologized for this and said that he seemed able to use Shadowman's magic. Isaac explained that its element is actually water, and compatibility with other elements is not impossible. He certainly has a lot of energy. If he were a nobleman, wouldn't he be able to do much more? Leo said he'd try again next time. Along with Isaac, he will learn many new things. Isaac asked what he was talking about, because right now they're just playing. And Leo keeps talking about studying when you need to put in your best effort. That's what it means to be a child. Leo agreed with Isaac. Leo could have escaped. And Johann burst into tears. Johann vented his anger on Leo, even though he didn't understand why. The prince was perfectly suited to street life. Lydia asked Catherine how much time was left until the next lesson. She replied that there was an hour left. Then Lydia will go for a short walk. Catherine wanted Lydia to be careful. Lydia had been worried about meeting Isaac before. But it's okay now. He works in the garden where his leaves are. Lydia called him. Isaac told her she was on time and took her hand, inviting her to look into his garden. Lydia then asked him what his garden was. He explained that he had planted some seeds. She looked around at the clover blossoms. She asked if he did it alone. He suggested she walk past the flowers. She asked if it was really here, not wanting to spoil what he had worked so hard to create. Then he asked her to dance. He took her hand and they danced together. Isaac noticed that dancing here was difficult. Lydia agreed with him, asking why he did it. He said it was a secret. She wanted to say something, but said she'd do it another time. Isaac said he would tell her next time. They danced among the clover flowers. 2 days later, the prince stayed at the Duke's house. The Duke thanked him for coming all this way. The prince apologized for the inconvenience, saying he wanted to see the famous garden. The Duke said he would ask Lydia to accompany the prince. The prince handed him the book and said he wanted the Duke to consider the request. The Duke flipped through the notes, asking if he understood correctly that the king himself had signed the document. The prince said it was only a draft of the document. The Duke promised to reply before leaving. Before departing, the prince asked Lydia if he could count on her. Lydia nodded. Then she summoned the prince to the garden where a tea table had been prepared. The prince was surprised to see that flowers were still blooming here in the autumn. Nature here was truly amazing, far better than in the castle. Lydia was sure their gardener would be delighted to hear these words. Finally, they were left alone, and Lydia said she wanted to talk about the proposal she had presented to her father earlier. Was it him? Prince Roy explained that this is why. Duke Ernst is responsible for education throughout the country, which is why he's only arriving today. Since Lydia understood the education system, he admitted that this was actually a selfish thought on his part. His father would understand immediately. That's why he spoke to the Duke today. Lydia asked if it would be bad if the prince knew. The prince explained that it wouldn't be good, that he was taking a huge risk by trying to do so, because his father would certainly stop him. One day he will become king and will not shy away from this power and responsibility. But he has a dream he wants to fulfill, and to do that, he needs a companion. Lydia asked if it was her. Prince Roy confirmed that it was. The visit was to express his gratitude for Lydia's attendance at the festival, and he also wanted to speak with his potential fiancé. He needed some time before entering the palace, and to do that, he needed a fiancé to avoid causing a commotion. Ernst's family was a perfect match, both in terms of status and bloodline. Most importantly, if he had to choose a political bride, he would choose her. He said she still had time to think, suggesting they should start by getting to know each other and wanting to see if he could trust her. She replied that she didn't want to do anything differently either. The prince thought that was wonderful. She has every right to do so. He's using her so she can do the same. Lydia said she needed more time to think. The prince smiled and agreed, suggesting they set a date. Lydia said she was still just a candidate, but wondered if she could tell this story to others. The prince gave permission, saying there was no need to hide anything from friends. And he also wanted to use that as an excuse to stay in touch with Duke Ernst. Lydia understood that he was using her as a reason to continue the connection. Roy found it interesting to discuss this with her, so the Duke was secondary. She said that wouldn't help anyway. She could give him enough reasons already. The prince thanked her. Lydia thought he was a gentle person. The prince asked if she disliked him. She replied that, in fact, it was quite the opposite. If Roy were her fiancé, the risks would certainly increase. And if he decides to call off the engagement, her family could be in trouble. Roy allowed himself time to think, knowing that his actions would determine his future. Roy was a respectable man, and being engaged to a prince was a great honor. She didn't know what to say to him. Isaac approached and asked if everything was all right. She seemed lost in thought. Lydia replied that she was just thinking. Isaac said that he wanted to tell her a secret today. He called her to come with him and said he wanted to make her happy. He found a 4-leaf clover in his garden, much to her surprise. Isaac explained that there were many of them here, and they were all normal until she walked past. Lydia was even more surprised, and Isaac said that every time she stepped on a blade of grass, a new leaf had sprouted. She asked why he didn't do it himself. And Isaac said it must be her, because wherever she went, good fortune followed her. He didn't know why she was sad, but if she kept moving forward, then everything would be all right. Lydia burst into tears, and Isaac didn't understand what had happened. He just wanted to be there to support her. He blamed himself for being thoughtless and apologized profusely for not knowing anything. Lydia had once feared that her choice was a mistake. But Isaac showed her that happiness would always follow her. He was the one who inspired her to try her best and move forward. That's wonderful. Those words made her feel happy. She told Isaac that she had met the prince at a party. He's a wonderful person, a great dancer, and also kind and intelligent. She was chosen as a prospective spouse. And then they met again, and he said she was the right person for him. She used to admire the brides and princes in books, but she never thought she would become one of them. She was very surprised and didn't know what to do. Although it was clearly a great honor, Isaac agreed that she must have been very surprised. He admitted that he himself had never thought about love or marriage, that she was young and still a child. Her worries were understandable. Of course, balancing studies and marriage was not easy, and feeling confused was perfectly natural. He asked her if this was her final decision. Lydia explained that Sir Roy had told her to think it over. Isaac advised her to take her time. At least the prince wasn't a bad person, but she didn't need to rush into such a difficult decision. Just live fully in the present and everything would be all right. She agreed with him and said that she was still just a candidate. Isaac said that everything would be fine as long as she felt happy. Lydia asked why he only cared about her. Isaac replied that he didn't know the prince, and instead of thinking about a stranger, he just wanted her to be happy. She recalled that her father had told her to let him know if she made a decision, and if she didn't want to, he would refuse on her behalf. Catherine had also advised her to do what she thought was right. She had no idea that so many people wished her happiness. She felt very lucky. She asked Isaac if she could take the clover home with her, and he agreed. Lydia wanted to make bookmarks from those blades of grass, then send it to everyone as a thank you and a wish for good luck. As for Isaac, she didn't know what to do because he was grown up and didn't have any books. He admitted he was a fool. For all this time he thought he had planted that garden for her, but then he realized he might leave before he had a chance to grow up. He wishes he could grow up faster. At night, he dreams about his past life. Then I woke up, went to wash my face, and felt cold. Several months had passed since the young lady told him about her engagement to the prince. Their relationship hadn't changed much, except that the young lady now visited the garden less often than before. But that was only because the prince saw her twice a month. Isaac couldn't help but be curious. He had never met a prince. A marriage of love was what bound ordinary people together in his previous life, but here he understood very little about political marriages. The young lady and the prince were both younger than him. It was probably difficult for them to think about marriage before they knew what love was. He knew he shouldn't interfere. They have different values, but he still hopes she will marry for love. He was genuinely surprised to see Lydia burst into tears, even if they were tears of happiness, but he still didn't want to see her cry. He only wanted her to always be happy. A commoner like him could do nothing, but he still hoped that she would find happiness. What he meant to say was, that's all he could do. Lydia called out to him and asked who he was talking to. Isaac replied that he was talking to a rabbit. Lydia then asked which rabbit. Isaac then showed her the rabbit, and she exclaimed how cute it was. He reached out to pet it, but Isaac pulled it back. He explained that it was a snow rabbit, and he had cleaned off the dirty snow to mold it, and if she touched it without gloves, she would freeze. So she shouldn't touch it. The rabbit seemed to puff up, and Isaac suddenly thought maybe she really liked him. He asked if he should make a snow rabbit and send it to her room. He would sculpt it from pure snow, but it would be best to leave it on the terrace. She happily agreed and asked for a promise from him, saying she would ask her father to use magic to keep it from melting. Isaac promised her and carefully shaped the rabbit's fur. Isaac asked the young lady how she was doing and if the prince had visited yesterday. She replied that the prince had come, looking magnificent in his pristine white ceremonial robes. Isaac thought about why she had come here again, and that Lydia must have felt uncomfortable talking about a handsome prince with her mother or Aunt Catherine. So she chose to tell him instead. She said that Sir Roy seemed to have an older sister with hair exactly like his and who looked very lovely. It was like showing off a friend, but also like praising an idol. Either way, it made him genuinely happy because it seemed like they had become friends. Lydia said she had told the prince about Flora. Isaac realized that Lydia was adorable whenever she talked about the prince, and he knew that smile suited her perfectly. However, for some reason, he always annoyed her. When she asked him what he had just said, Isaac quickly corrected himself, saying he had probably misspoken. He apologized and said he had always listened attentively to her. Lydia said that was enough for today. Isaac apologized again if he had said anything strange. She left, and he didn't understand what he had done to anger her. Despite his best efforts to be careful, he realized once again that living in the present was important. Now he could only gaze at Lydia's smile and listen to it whenever he could. His father appeared in the garden. Isaac explained that he wasn't avoiding work, he just enjoyed helping out in the greenhouse. But his father refused. Isaac said he couldn't let Lydia come here in the cold, and his father agreed. Isaac had told her that he wanted to grow up as soon as possible, that he wanted to become a gardener. Although gardening wasn't particularly special, it was a skill he could easily learn. Even though he'd started early, he didn't know if he'd mastered it before Lydia got married. Probably not. However, he doesn't need to worry about the future. He just needs to try his best and do everything within his capabilities. Lydia went to bed. She thought that giving something away was so difficult. She opened the box and looked at the 4-leaf clover. She easily gave her father and Catherine bookmarks made from 4-leaf clovers, but she still couldn't picture giving it to Isaac. He didn't even have any books now, so bookmarking wouldn't do him any good. He didn't have nice clothes either, which was bad, and he certainly wouldn't accept anything too expensive. She thought about what she should do. It seemed like she had worried about this before. And he replied that no matter what, as long as she was happy, he would be happy too. She tossed and turned in bed, wondering why he was always like this. Even today, he'd said she looked adorable when talking about princes. She wanted to talk to him a little longer because she wouldn't be able to see him tomorrow. She thought of the rabbit, looked at it, and then wondered what else she could give Isaac besides a smile. She decided she would talk to Catherine tomorrow, thank the rabbit, and wish it good night. The next morning, she woke up and went out onto the balcony to greet the adorable rabbit. Then I saw Isaac shoveling snow. She ran to him and he called her a fool, saying she would catch a cold. Then he took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She said it was his, but he replied that it was okay because he was working and feeling hot. He asked her what she was doing there, and she explained that she had seen him from the balcony. Isaac told her she didn't need to rush over just because he was there. Lydia informed Isaac that today was her birthday. The other girls are throwing a party for her, and she thought she wouldn't be able to see him today. Isaac smiled and said they could meet another time. She said they couldn't meet at another time because she had to put herself first. She didn't need to worry about him, but rather about taking care of her health and avoiding catching a cold. He asked her if he could worry about her. Lydia promised to be more careful next time. Isaac patted her on the head and said she was lovely. He offered to see her off before Catherine arrived to wake her up. Lydia didn't want to go back. She wanted to stay with Isaac. As they approached the castle, Isaac asked her to lift her head. He activated water magic, and he said it was his birthday present. A rainbow created with water magic. It was beautiful. He wished her a happy birthday. Lydia thanked him and asked him to do it again the following year. He agreed, and really they shouldn't worry too much, but should appreciate the gift they have now. The other girls gathered at the castle to celebrate Lydia's birthday. Lydia thanked everyone and understood that they were young ladies from different families. She realized that, just as her mother had said, they praised her and looked at her with envy. Some said they were also candidates, others complimented her to curry favor, all because she was a strong contender for the prince's bride. Her mother had said that today at the festival she would find out who her true friends were. She needs to think of being a candidate as a good opportunity. In other words, she has to use Sir Roy. She recalled Sir Roy's words. He had said the same thing, suggesting that she should use him. She thought it was really necessary to consider his offer. A girl called out her name. It was Lady Tortoise. She said it had been a long time, and she was very happy to see Lydia again. Lydia also said she was very happy. They cried out in delight. In fact, Lydia wanted to ask her something. Lady Tortoise asked what it was about. Lydia wondered what gift she should give a man. She asked again, "To whom will I give this gift?" Lydia didn't think the gift would be useful if it were from Sir Gerlard. But recently she gave her father a silver pendant, which wasn't expensive. Her father used a sword, so he didn't wear rings and didn't like them because they could scratch him. Lydia thought Isaac was wearing gloves, so the ring wouldn't be suitable. But the pendant wasn't expensive. It was impressive. Wouldn't get in the way of her work and wouldn't scratch her. She knew this was exactly the gift she needed. Lydia asked Lady Tortoise where she bought it. She replied that Yule was approaching and there were many things to worry about. Lydia recalled that the Yule was a winter festival held in December. People sing hymns expressing gratitude, and parents give gifts to their children as a prayer for their good fortune. On this day, children also give gifts to their parents, siblings, and friends. She could give Isaac a gift on that day. Lydia thanked Lady Tortoise and decided that she needed to prepare a gift. She hoped that he would like it. His sister called him because she was stuck. Taichi asked her what she needed. She explained that this was an otome game, and the tactical RPG aspect was too complicated. He said that he had just gotten home, and this was the first thing she asked him to help with. She said he was good at the game, so he had to help her. Taichi yelled that she was really bad at it, always playing games that gave her a headache. She then asked him to show her how to play. He agreed because he had no other choice. She thought she would be trapped forever, but now there would be a happy ending, so she thanked him. He heard someone call his name, calling him Isaac. He opened his eyes and saw his mother trying to wake him up. She told him it was time to get up. He needed to wash his face and have breakfast, and hurry because Dennis had already left. He thought about another dream about his past life. He tried to remember the name of the character Yuka had mentioned. He thought he'd heard it somewhere before. Anyway, he doesn't care about otome games. He went out to the greenhouse, and Lydia called him. Isaac wondered why she always came for tea. Lydia asked Dennis if she and Isaac could take the job. He agreed because they were just taking a break. Isaac saw his father smile, a rare smile. He thought they were like a bear and a cat, but he also felt a little happy to see his father talking to the child without any hesitation. Catherine poured tea, bowed, and prepared to leave. Isaac asked if she wanted to join them, but she explained that she had more work to do. He thought she might be trying to be polite and noticed that her father had also left. He asked her why she decided to have tea here, and she explained that it was because they could relax together here. Normally they would stand and chat in the garden, and people would notice if they sat comfortably. This was the only place where an ordinary person like him and Lydia could enjoy a peaceful cup of tea. Anyway, it's nice to have tea with someone, rather than alone. Isaac asked why she didn't have tea with Catherine. Lydia admitted that she didn't have the courage to ask. Isaac thought she must be worried that her request would sound like a command, and perhaps she had also considered Catherine's personality. He asked if he could invite her, but Lydia refused, saying she wanted to do it alone. Isaac agreed, thinking she was trying very hard. Lydia was probably shy, afraid to reveal her true self. When they first met, she was hidden behind her title and very strong. It's easy to hurt someone if they reveal their true selves, and anyone would be afraid. He said that she had become much stronger. Lydia asked if it was a compliment, but agreed and added that she was wonderful. According to him, she was more than a prince. Lydia exclaimed that it was because he hadn't met the prince, and that it was all because of his manners. Isaac agreed with her, understanding that the usual conversation about the prince was about to begin again. He genuinely thought Lydia was amazing, because he couldn't have done that in his previous life. He had pretended not to be hurt and died without ever showing his true self. He felt terrible about himself. He wondered how his sister Yuka was doing after his death. He knew her, and he was sure she was still happily playing otome games. By the way, this situation, it was like a world from a typical fantasy game. A big house, a beautiful, well-maintained garden, and a pretty blonde girl. And then there was Sir Roy. He recalled his sister saying that she thought she would be stuck forever, but now she could have a happy ending with Sir Roy, and thanked him for that. He recalled his question, wondering if this guy had insane statistics, since his skills and level were incomparable to others. Yuka explained that he wasn't one of those people, but Sir Roy was. He wasn't someone who disliked strong characters, but how could she be so terrible at acting? He would ask why she couldn't win if he was so strong, and she would say there were walls that couldn't be overcome by love alone. Speaking of obstacles in love, Sir Roy had a fiancée who was a sweet and lovable character. He asked his sister what she liked, and she showed him a picture on her phone. The candidate for the role of Sir Roy's wife was Lydia von Ernst. He recalled the photo on his phone and realized it was Lydia. Sir Roy and Lydia were engaged. She has the same full name as Lydia, which could just be a coincidence. This is the only thing he remembers from Yuka's minigame. He began to recall that in the game, Sir Roy's name was Roy Leonard von Rosenheim, the first prince of the Kingdom of Aventur. Each character had a unique magical element, and there were a total of 7 elements. There were 12 months in a year, and the seasons were similar to those in Japan. There was a magic academy and many noble students. Ordinary citizens can only enter if they meet the requirements. This is exactly like the world of a typical fantasy game. Isaac realized this was an autumn game. This is the world of an autumny game, but to him, it's the real world. Perhaps because it's inspired by the game, should he pay attention to something? He thought he needed to calm down as he took a sip of tea. Lydia yelled that he wasn't listening to her, and Isaac insisted that he was listening, of course. But his mind was preoccupied with the name of the game, Your Star, in which he wasn't. The problem is that Lydia is one of the candidates for the fiancé position in the storyline with Sir Roy. Of course, in that storyline, Lydia's heart would be broken, but she wouldn't be destroyed or lose her life. He breathed a sigh of relief. It was truly reassuring. But then he wondered if that were the case, then those memories were worthless, and both Lydia and he would be safe regardless of how the story branched off. So why are you thinking about this so much? If Lydia really continues to love Sir Roy like in the game, you'd be very surprised. Lydia went on to say that Sir Roy is really great. Even in their final encounter in the game, that political marriage still ends romantically, and Lydia will be happy. But there was also a possibility she would be rejected. Isaac didn't want to see her cry. He truly didn't know what to do if Lydia fell in love with Sir Roy. They would attend the Magic Academy together, always supporting each other even though he was just a commoner. He could do the same if he possessed enough magic power. School and magic in this world were truly fascinating, and Lydia even taught him how to write and told him how much magic power he needed. It was time to upgrade himself as much as possible. If he hadn't met Lydia again that day, he probably would never have thought about these things. Thanks to her, he's had many opportunities. For example, today's tea time. He wouldn't normally drink black tea, but he could, because he was sitting next to her. And because he wanted Lydia to see the garden, he could put in more effort and enjoy everything more. He blurted out that they were lucky to have met. Lydia didn't understand what he was saying. She seemed angry. She loudly complained that he wasn't listening to her again. Isaac realized he had upset her once more, but this time she seemed more confused than angry. She said she wanted to talk about plants right now. He agreed, but in his mind he was thinking, one moment she's a prince, the next she's my little sister. Lydia looked at her watch and said it was time to go. Isaac offered to see her off, but she declined because Catherine would be coming to pick her up. She held out her hand, a pendant in her palm, and told him to take it. He picked up the small object. It was indeed a pendant, quite pleasing to the eye, but he thought it didn't suit a young lady like her. He opened it and found inside a 4-leaf clover that she had picked from his garden. He said the pendant was lovely, just like her. Lydia was confused, not understanding why he said that. Isaac said that he would just talk to himself, but Lydia thought it didn't matter, because every emotion was clearly visible on his face. Isaac asked if it would be better if they stopped talking altogether, but Lydia said she didn't want that. Isaac felt relieved and asked if the gift meant an apology. She replied that it was a replica of him, leaving him completely confused. Lydia explained that she had made bookmarks as gifts for her father and others, but since he didn't have any books, this pendant was specifically for him. He had heard that she had once given a 4-leaf clover to the Duke, who had been overjoyed and boasted about it the day before. But he never imagined he would receive such a gift. Lydia explained that it was just an inexpensive item. Catherine had bought it at a budget shop. Isaac thanked Lydia and said he would cherish it. He asked why she had given him the gift at this time, and she explained that it was the day before Yule, but she had actually forgotten. Yule, in other words, is Christmas, just like in an autumny game, and he always finds it strange that it falls on December 25th. But he had nothing to say in response. He admitted that he wasn't prepared at all. Lydia thought she had already received a lot from him. When he asked, like what? She said, for example, the snow rabbit. That's her treasure. Actually, he also received a lot from her. The letters she wrote and sent made him happy. That was his treasure. In return for her previous gesture, he made a rabbit. Only a fool wouldn't protect this girl. He said he would give another gift. If anyone insulted her, just tell him, and he would beat them up. Lydia asked why he was so cruel, but Isaac told her not to worry. Just remember that. He didn't care about the prince, nor did he care that this was a game. The only thing he cared about was her. He wouldn't let anyone hurt her, and he swore it with this very pendant. A strange vow for the Yule festival, but anyway, he thought he could at least pray to God. He clutched the pendant tightly and wished that Lydia would always smile in the future. Meanwhile, the prince was sitting in the library, handling his affairs. The butler noticed that His Highness seemed to be enjoying it. The prince replied that there were still many documents to review. He remarked that the Duke was a cold nobleman, strict, but unlike his father. The butler remarked that it was rare to hear His Highness speak like that, leading him to believe that the rumors were probably true. The method for detecting magical abilities worked very effectively. He still clearly remembers the feeling of surprise. When asked to write a report on the color of hydrangeas, it was hard to believe that the color of the flower could change depending on a person's magical power. It's a pity they need pruning before they wither because they bloom to the best of their ability. And if not pruned now, they won't bloom again next year. His Highness's younger sister loves those flowers very much, so I want to let her see them one more time. His Highness greatly appreciated that, and must have been delighted to share it with his sister. They both possessed very similar elements. The butler, impressed, remarked that His Highness truly knew a great deal about gardening. The prince replied that he had consulted an expert. Just then there was a knock at the door. The prince gave permission to enter. And then his sister came in and said he should take a good look at himself for staring at papers all day. Roy smiled happily upon seeing Feline and remarked that she had arrived a little early today. Feline shrieked, prompting the prince to say that this proved she was capable of waking up on time. He asked if she had woken up on her own today, and the maid replied that she had woken her up herself. The prince burst out laughing, and Feline angrily shouted that he was laughing too much. He apologized and said he was only laughing because his sister was so cute. He asked what was going on, and Feline announced that the roses had bloomed in the garden and invited him to see them. The prince said he had some time before his next meeting. Feline then pulled him out to the garden, and he agreed, as it would allow him to be outside for a while. Feline asked if Klaus could come along. Roy didn't object, but asked if Klaus would run away if he saw him. Feline said she would go with Klaus next time. The two stood high up, gazing at the garden, Feline unable to hide her fascination with the flowers. Roy realized that his sister really liked roses. She said she wanted to look at the flowers with him because they reminded her of him, but he said roses reminded people of her more. Feline disagreed and insisted that he was more like a rose. Roy said that only she and Lady Lydia complimented each other. Lady Lydia is one of the candidates for the position of fiancé. Feline said she found it very interesting because it was strange to see her brother showing interest in someone. I thought you hated political games. Feline thought you were the stranger since you'd never mentioned any other candidates before. Roy suddenly realized that was true. Then he began to tell the story of Lady Lydia. She had wavy blonde hair and bright blue eyes like delicate flowers. When they first met, she was wearing a blue dress, though she usually wore pale pink, looking like a flower spirit. They both danced together for the first time in their lives, but she did so well that everyone applauded. Feline asked again, a blue dress, a pale pink dress, and a skilled dancer, that is Lady Lydia. The butler interrupted them, announcing that the prince's next meeting was about to begin. Roy apologized to Feline, who said it was all right and thanked him for his time. She wished him good luck, and Roy promised to return. They were sitting in a carriage, heading somewhere. The prince looked out the window, observing the people on the street. The butler remarked that it was surprising that the prince never grew tired of looking at the same road. The prince replied that, of course not, for every day was different from the day before. He looked down at the street and saw the children running and playing. He wondered if he could ask the housekeeper something. The prince posed his own question, how to make friends. The butler wondered why he was asking that question today. The prince explained that someone had refused his offer. The butler said he understood, then asked what he would do in that situation. Would he immediately say yes? The prince replied that it would be difficult, but honestly, it depended on the person. The butler nodded in agreement, saying that not everyone is willing to accept an offer of friendship. Roy realized he had chosen the wrong words and stopped communicating with his friends. As usual, the butler inquired about the person who had rejected him. The prince said that they still met occasionally. The butler was surprised, and the prince explained that the man was helping him with some tasks. The butler asked if he really needed to be with that person, and the prince assured him that this was enough. But recently he himself has been doing a great job, but it's much more enjoyable working with that person. The housekeeper wondered if that meant they were already friends. They arrived at the castle, and Lydia greeted the prince at the door. The prince said that it had been a long time since they had seen each other, but Lydia reminded him that it had only been 2 weeks. The prince noticed that she lived a busy life. Others might get tired of waiting that long. Lydia apologized, but the prince asked her not to worry. He hadn't meant it that way and hoped to hear about these happy days. Lydia agreed. The prince asked if she would like to show him around the garden today, which would be wonderful for him. Lydia agreed and said she would treat him to tea. They went to the garden. The prince said that she was different today, in a positive way. Lydia explained that she felt ashamed for not treating him like the other ladies. The prince claimed that he was very happy, but the opposite was clearly true. She had other things to do before meeting him, but the other ladies just wanted to know all about him. Lydia asked if it was because he was interesting. The prince said that he didn't like such conversations, and indeed, they weren't fun at all. The other young ladies were taught by their parents how to flatter very skillfully, and their feelings and admiration were distorted. Lydia said that she understood and asked if she should stop listening to him, but Lydia was different. The prince was delighted to see the truth. He asked her what she wanted to show him today. Lydia pointed out the blooming flame trees and the beautiful magnolias nearby. The prince was delighted. The Ernst family's garden was always changing, and it was a pleasure to visit. Lydia said that she loved the garden too. They heard a cracking sound and saw something fall from the tree. The prince immediately stood in front of Lydia and told her to step back. He thought that might be the cause. Something fell to the ground. He stood up, brushed off the dust, and said everything was fine. He was holding a bouquet of flamboyant flowers. Lydia asked why he fell right from that spot. Isaac didn't understand the question. He said this wasn't the right place, just the top of a tree. Lydia shrieked, asking why he had fallen from the tree in the first place. Isaac explained that he had cut some branches to decorate Lydia's room, and he thought just taking the nice ones would suffice. Lydia said it was dangerous. Isaac thanked her for her concern. Lydia reminded him that he hadn't even apologized. Roy said it was funny, he had never seen her so relaxed. Lydia called out Sir Roy's name, and Isaac looked at him carefully, and was surprised to realize it was Sir Roy. Lydia said she hadn't said anything strange. Isaac explained that this was the person he found strange. Lydia shouted that Sir Roy was the prince, and Isaac was being quite impolite by calling him this man and then pointing at him. Isaac asked if he could change the way he addressed him, but the prince said it was fine, as they were in an informal setting. Isaac insisted that he would never officially meet the prince because he was a commoner. The prince laughed and told him never to say never. Isaac declared that if that happened, he feared he wouldn't be able to be polite to the prince. The prince said the same thing. Lydia watched them and asked if they really knew each other. Isaac replied that the man had gotten lost in the middle of town, and Roy explained that Isaac had helped him while he was exploring the city. Lydia said that she had never heard them talk about this. Isaac told the prince to keep his complaints to Leo, as Leo surely already knew, and he didn't even know that Sir Roy was Leo. The prince apologized and said that he had intended to explain when they met, but they never met again. Isaac asked if he was trying to surprise him. Leo admitted that he really wanted to see Isaac's reaction, but he wasn't surprised at all. Isaac explained that he knew Leo was of high status, and it wasn't unusual for him to act like an adult now. He asked if that was all. Isaac said that was all. They both laughed, but then the prince began to glow. Isaac quickly hid behind Lydia and begged the prince to stop. Lydia screamed at him not to use her as a shield. Isaac shouted that she had so much magic, making her a great shield so she could do it. Lydia asked him where the logic was that her magic wouldn't help. The reason the prince didn't tell Isaac who he was because he didn't want Isaac to interact with him in any other way. But it seemed he didn't need to worry about that. The prince smiled. At that moment, the butler appeared and called the prince's name. The prince asked what was wrong, as they still had time. The butler explained that they had been drinking tea for too long and it seemed a little noisy, and he thought something had happened. Lydia apologized and explained that it was their gardener who had been rude. Isaac said it was his fault. But the two of them looked at each other carefully. Isaac recognized Matthew and asked why he was there. Matthew also recognized Isaac and said that the outfit didn't suit him. Matthew realized this was the person who had refused to be his friend. Roy laughed and thought that Isaac was more surprised by Matthew than by the fact that he was a prince. Isaac asked Lydia when this would all be over. She didn't know and suggested that it was his fault. Anyway, they didn't care if this was the world of an otome game. They spent happy days together. The great thing was that the prince looked so cheerful. They were sitting in the garden. Flora took Lydia's hand and pulled her along. Lydia asked Flora why she wouldn't let go of her hand. Lydia explained that Flora didn't want to let go and was very energetic today. It has been a year since Isaac became the gardener's apprentice and met Lydia. Although he realized this was the world of an anime game and Leo was Sir Roy, his life remained unchanged. He used his fingers to play rock, paper, scissors, and asked Flora if she could play. The little girl tried again and pulled her hand away from Lydia. Isaac praised her, and Flora smiled happily. Lydia was surprised, saying that Flora never listened to her. Even Lydia, one of the main antagonists in the game, was now just a girl worried about her younger sister. In that game, she wasn't even an unscripted character. It was normal for her to live a simple, unremarkable life. Really, why did he still remember memories from his past life? Isaac explained that children her age often imitate everything they see. He gave her a wreath. Lydia asked what it was. Isaac explained that if you tie the ends of the flowers together like this, you'll have a clover wreath. He gave the wreath to Lydia and Flora. It was a very lovely floral decoration. Lydia said that he was very skilled at such things. Those wreaths, that pendant. He said he thought she could make them too. He suggested starting from scratch. First, you need to pick a flower. Divide the flower stem in half, wrap it around your finger, and you're done. He made a ring out of a clover. He said it was nothing serious, but he could tell from Lydia's face that something had happened. Perhaps she was angry, then blushed because he had put the ring on the third finger of her left hand. She pointed at his hand. Isaac felt embarrassed. He said it was just an accident. Lydia demanded that he be quiet and not say anything more. If he opened his mouth, she would not be responsible. He paused, realizing she was very angry, and the atmosphere became awkward. But at that moment, Flora started shouting loudly and pulling at Lydia's dress again. Lydia asked what was wrong, and Flora pointed at Lydia's hand. She understood that Flora also wanted a ring like that. Lydia asked Isaac if he could make another ring for Flora, but not on her ring finger. If he did that, she would forget about it. He agreed, and made a ring for Flora, but the little girl kept screaming. Lydia didn't understand what was happening to her because she already had the ring. Isaac said that Flora now has a new goal. She really likes that pendant. Lydia noticed the pendant hanging around his neck. Yule was long gone. But why did he still keep it? Isaac explained that he had worn the pendant around his neck ever since she gave it to him. It was hidden under her clothes so it wasn't damaged, and now Flora has found it. He said he would make her a necklace, but Flora asked him to let her make it. This is the little girl's treasure. Lydia was surprised that even in such ordinary moments, she could sense how much Isaac cared for her. He was so important to her, so what could she do for him? It had been a year since she met Isaac. Sir Roy was patiently awaiting her decision, and soon she would have to give him an answer. Isaac sat by the water tap, waiting for Leo. He arrived a little earlier than the time they had agreed to meet. He spotted the old man coming out of the flower shop and ran towards him. He asked if the old man was really waiting for the young man near the tap. Isaac agreed. The florist said he was shocked when the man walked straight past him and then straight back from the bay. The man asked if he could sell him hydrangeas and promised to pay a good price. Isaac said that was because his hydrangeas were special. They could be replanted and bloom all year round, except during the rainy season. However, the florist went on to say that he was happy this was part of some kind of research. Magical elements, perfume, as if someone needed them. Isaac didn't understand what was going through his head. He had taught him how to grow hydrangeas so he wouldn't let them wither. The florist said this made him happy and said goodbye to Isaac. Isaac promised to return to the shop someday. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine, realizing it was the sensation of a dark spirit. He couldn't understand how these spirits could be here in broad daylight. Isaac wanted to try and track them. Spirits often gather around sources of magic, and magic, which involves spells like hypnosis, is often abused by evil people. He didn't sense any malice from them, but it was better to be cautious. He ran quickly, sensing some kind of energy somewhere nearby. Looking down the alley, he saw a little girl sitting with her back to him. He asked her if she was all right. She was startled and asked who was there. The little girl's hair was sparkling, which displeased Isaac with this silly new sparkly hairstyle. He asked her if she was Leo's sister, but the little girl didn't know who he was talking about. Isaac asked if she knew Mr. Roy, and she was surprised to hear that name. Isaac confessed that Roy had once asked him to show him around the city center, introducing himself as Isaac, currently an apprentice gardener at Ernst Manor. The little girl remembered the name and understood that he was the servant of Lady Lydia. Isaac asked if she was lost, and she explained that Roy had gone out for a walk, and she had followed him but then lost sight of him while looking around. Isaac clearly sensed the presence of a dark spirit. It emanated from that cloak. So she really went with Leo? And what kind of cloak was that anyway? He asked her what the cloak was. The little girl explained that it had been left in Mr. Roy's office. She had tried it on, and it turned out to be a magical cloak. That cloak made the wearer invisible. Isaac wondered if Roy was being too careless to leave things like that unattended. Now everything is clear. It's no wonder a girl dressed so elegantly could wander around the city center without attracting any attention. Leo's first appearance caused quite a stir. Whatever the reason, she was lost. Isaac patted her head gently and told her it was all right. He would return the shirt to her brother. The little girl agreed. Isaac used magic to create a bird that soared into the sky, and the little girl asked what it was. Isaac explained that it was a type of magic used for sending messages, and he had used it to find Sir Roy, even while he was wearing that very cloak. Now he would take the little girl to the meeting point. He reminded her to stand still, otherwise her hair would get dirty from touching the ground, and she said she would help tie it back. The little girl thanked him, then complimented him on how skillful he was at taking care of her long hair. Isaac said that his younger sister used to ask him to tie her hair into a ponytail too, and since that was how it was when they were kids, he had to learn. The little girl asked again, "So you have a sister?" But Isaac simply replied that she was just an older sister. He held out his hand and beckoned her closer. She tried to stand up, but her leg hurt. Spending most of my time just walking around the castle was clearly exhausting. As was his habit, Isaac sat down and told the little girl to sit on his shoulders. People usually can't afford to hire a horse-drawn carriage, so he'll carry her on his back. He lifted her onto his back and started walking. Along the way, he asked her name. The little girl replied that her name was Feline. He asked if he was being impolite. Should I address her by a title appropriate to her status? But Elena said it wasn't necessary. This is not an official audience. Isaac insisted that she and Roy were definitely siblings. They looked exactly alike. Elena agreed, except for their eyes. Otherwise, they were like two peas in a pod. But Isaac said he wasn't talking about their appearance, but their personalities. This is the first time anyone has pointed out any similarities between them, other than their appearance. Isaac said she looked honest and age-appropriate, while Leo looked like a little old man, which didn't suit him at all. Elena asked what a little old man was. Isaac explained that it was someone who had the face and appearance of a child, but behaved like an adult. She should relax more. Elena agreed because Roy was working too hard. Isaac realized the little girl was very worried about her brother. Elena nodded, saying that Roy was extremely important to her, but wasn't Lydia the only one in Roy's romantic storyline? Yuka's account never mentioned her, and Roy never mentioned Elena either. But even if she wasn't mentioned, it didn't matter. That simply means she's not the main character. For Isaac, what matters is that she doesn't interfere with his life or Lydia's. He realized that his knowledge had been distorted. The life experiences he had gone through were very different from the memories he had of helping Yuka play the game. Unlike Isaac, who is living this world as if it were a second life, Yuka would surely enjoy it much more. He remembered the times Yuka would get stuck while playing games and always have to call him for help. Elena blurted out that she thought she was trapped. That's Yuka's catchphrase. Could this little girl Elena really be Feline? Elena von Rosenheim, the princess, the third child of the royal family, the daughter of the king and the first queen, and she remembered everything about her past life. But that didn't matter anymore. She was one of the few people born with powerful magical abilities. And what's more, she possesses two elements that are difficult to control. Therefore, her body often unleashes a storm of magic whenever her mood fluctuates. When she cries loudly, everything around her collapses. She was afraid of everyone and often locked herself in the palace. She hated herself for being so weird and scary. But then her savior appeared, her beloved older brother, Roy. She has two brothers, but only Roy is her biological brother, and they both possess the ability of light, an extremely rare attribute. Roy was also very gentle with her, always there to help her through the most difficult times in her life. He discovered the reason why her magic had become uncontrollable and gradually taught her how to control it. How could she not pour her heart out to love him? Every time someone mentioned how similar the two of them looked, she was overjoyed. Just being able to resemble her beloved older brother was a source of pride for her. When he was too busy to spend time with her, she could look at him in the mirror. She comforted herself in her loneliness by searching for similarities to him in her own face, and from there, the habit of looking in the mirror every day gradually became a routine. Then one day, while looking in the mirror, she remembered that she had seen this face before. She also knew her name, Philan Elena von Rosenheim, a supporting character in a fall-themed game from her past life, appearing in a storyline branch with her favorite male protagonist of the year. This is the official name, carrying immense hidden potential. In her previous life, Yuka considered this to be the ideal type. But she found her too cold. She was almost drawn to this character. When she saw her picture on the game cover, Yuka bought the game and couldn't forget it. Yuka was unsure whether to start with her branch or save it for later. She thought she would decide once she got through the training, but really all she wanted was to play, because she possessed powerful magic. In the game, Yuka is enrolled in the Magic Academy without explanation, and then the game begins. The hydrangea bush in the corner is her magic stat. Yuka is a special case. She doesn't have any special skills at all because the flower is white. Initially, each male character has unique characteristics. The degree of Yuka's closeness to someone and their personality will influence her. The color of the hydrangea bushes will change depending on the storyline branch the player is leading. Light green corresponds to wind, orange to earth, purple to darkness, pink to fire, blue to water, white to nothing, and light yellow to electricity. It all takes place in the Illusion Academy of Magic. She decides to start with a bad ending with Prince Roy, and save the good ending for after completing the remaining branches. There was no one else in the room, so Yuka stayed awake all night. A few hours later, she thought again that the prince was actually very kind, but in the light branch, he was merely being polite. Yuka thought that real men only existed in games. She saw someone appear in the game, the prince, and a girl from the game stepped out and asked permission to speak. She said that someone like her was not worthy of Prince Roy. This is a rival, a highly principled competitor, a noble lady. If she cannot prove that her efforts yield real results, she will never have the position of his fiancé. That must be remembered. Yuka wondered if she wanted a fair fight. How beautiful. She's honest and wouldn't stoop to underhanded tactics. Yuka couldn't say she didn't like that. And now she's decided she'll face it and win the confession. Fairly. She played the game for a long time, very hard, and finally, everything was ready. There were times she almost gave up, but she knew perfectly well that the girl was her brother's lover. A new character. That's right, that character is Philan Elena von Rosenheim. Philan was originally a minor character in Prince Roy's faction and occasionally visited the academy. There are many situations in which the player is forced to make the wrong choices. Otherwise, they will not be able to achieve a good ending. If they ever met her, she would tell them things that Prince Roy would never tell. He was her second favorite character after the prince, but because she frequently came to check on her brother, Yuka was once very surprised. Why was she so attached to her brother? Born with the name Philan, she saw her life from a first-person perspective, and she understood Philan's pain better than anyone. That is why she loved her brother so deeply. In both her past and present lives, he had brought her happiness. But she believed this was a different matter, and now she would use her memories from her past life to ensure Roy's happiness. It was time to do something for him. She recalled the advice. If she didn't want to end up in a bad position in the prince's branch, she needed to avoid a few crucial moments. First, Roy was unable to reconcile with Klaus, and as a consequence, Klaus seized the throne. Second, Roy failed to control two elements, light and darkness. Simply avoiding those could have resulted in a happy ending. Philan decided it was time to act. She couldn't miss this opportunity. First, she needed to befriend her brothers. Her eldest brother was Prince Klaus. Klaus is a different branch of the game. He's competing with Roy for the throne. They have one thing in common: a good ending when Roy ascends the throne, and a bad ending when Klaus does. This might affect Klaus and his branch, but it still exists and comes up occasionally, so there must be some way to bring the two brothers closer together. She asked Klaus if he would like to have tea with her and Roy. But Klaus's mother, Queen Simone, appeared and interfered in her son's affairs, which she feared would force him to give up. Klaus was too busy playing the violin. Klaus apologized, and Philan said she didn't intend to bother him while he was busy. Every time she tried to invite Klaus, Queen Germaine would intervene and interrupt them. Even when she brought Klaus along, he always kept his distance from Roy. It's difficult to find a way to approach him, but Philan didn't give up and would try to find a way. Roy possessed both light and dark magic. Currently, he only knew about light magic, so he couldn't speed up the process here. This would only become known after entering the academy. Similarly, whenever she worried about her magic getting out of control, he was always there to help. She wanted to be there for him, to support him when he was the one suffering because of magic, if anything were to drag him down. She wanted him to trust her. She needed to be someone he could talk to about everything. However, she couldn't influence the situation in the slightest. All she could do was offer her busy brother a chance to relax over afternoon tea. This seemed rather cliché. She was a princess with memories from a past life. That was all she could do. She went to his room and found he wasn't there. But seeing the hydrangea flowers bloom in a pale yellow color, it's like light magic, and purple like dark magic. This means Roy already knows about his dark magic. She thought he would only learn these two abilities when he entered the academy. Feline couldn't understand how he found out, but that wasn't the only thing that struck her as strange. She had asked him about the appearance of Lady Lydia, whom Roy had mentioned. The Lady Lydia that Roy was talking about was not the Lydia she remembered. Their hair and eye color are the same, but everything else is different. She clearly remembered the first dress Lydia wore. It was bright red, even when she was a child. But her brother said she wore light blue and pink dresses. Not to mention the dance, the game says that when they first met, Miss Lydia is a terrible dancer and even falls. Then Roy offered her a hand to help her stand up, and she fell in love with him right then. However, in reality, she didn't fall. Instead, he said she jumped beautifully, unlike in the game. Perhaps Lady Lydia remembers her past life. She would do anything to be able to talk to her whenever possible. She was also a prime candidate for the role of bride. She might even be her sister-in-law. Feline suddenly had an idea. She wanted to meet Lydia. She decided to leave the palace. Perhaps she could borrow a cloak from Roy's study. She couldn't think of anything else, so she tidied up her brother's room, grabbed her cloak, and left. But now she was lost. She had tried so hard to chase after her brother, but she had lost sight of him. She couldn't take another step, so she sat down in an alley and thought about what would happen if she never returned home. It was best to stay put until the game started, even though some things had already gone wrong. Then she heard someone ask if she was okay. She was surprised to find herself discovered. If she had been wearing a raincoat, who could have recognized her? Feline asked who was speaking and saw an ordinary-looking young man. Someone asked if she was Leo's sister. He said Leo is Roy's middle name. She didn't know who called her brother by that name, so she didn't know who he was. Then he introduced himself as Isaac, Roy's friend and an apprentice gardener on Lady Lydia's estate. When she saw him, she felt a strange sensation. It was as if there were a distant memory. Memories from when she was Yuka. Memories of her older brother. Feline remembered her older brother who was always arguing with their stubborn father. Her brother was always honest with himself. He died in an accident. Their parents were completely stunned. She could barely believe it. He was sentenced to death for that. She called him an idiot because he could talk to them, to his family. Those distant memories of her brother, memories that had been shut off. Perhaps because all her memories had come flooding back, she said a phrase she used to say so often when she was Yuka. Thank you so much. She was certain she had reached a dead end, and so with just one simple sentence, they met again, not with her brother Roy, not with Klaus, but with her silly older brother. Isaac asked the girl if she was really Yuka. The girl asked again if he was really Taichi. They pondered the situation, realizing that getting acquainted was easy, no need for hesitation. It sounded so familiar. Just that one sentence reminded Isaac of his younger brother. He asked the girl if she was Yuka, then realized Taichi was standing in front of him. The girl said she wanted him to call her Lady Elena. He said he knew she was often rude, but that was actually the first thing that came to mind. Feline asked him what he was looking at and who Isaac was, to which he replied that it would be good if he knew, and that he couldn't remember anyone named Elena. They explained that it was because Elena was her middle name, and her real name was Feline. She was actually a minor character in Prince Roy's faction. She took the middle name Elena because Taichi called Roy Leo. Isaac now understood where the name came from, but he had no intention of memorizing the names of the minor characters. She said she was a supporting character, and not even a background character. He didn't understand the workings of reincarnation. But he knew Roy was just a coincidence, and working for Lady Lydia was another coincidence. There must be something more to it than just a coincidence. Feline asked him not to say it was his fault, because things were very different from what happened in the game. Isaac asked her what she meant by that the events were different. Fillion explained that he knew about his two main abilities, darkness and light, and asked if he was the one who revealed it. Isaac then asked her if he really possessed those two abilities, but he didn't know what his mistake was. Fillion recalled that Roy shouldn't have known, but he had used the hydrangeas to figure it out. Isaac realized that these were the same hydrangeas he had bought from his old gardener. Roy was the one who had bought those hydrangeas, and Isaac had done nothing to stop him. Fillion asked, "What about Lady Lydia?" She should have fallen while dancing with Roy, but Lydia is so good that she didn't mess things up. Isaac replied that it was nothing. He said he remembered nothing about the game and was just an ordinary man with a little magic. What could he possibly do? Fillion yelled that she was a princess with amazing magical powers, but nothing changed. Isaac asked her not to put all the blame on him. Fillion admits that she still can't stop thinking about her helplessness in her current life. Isaac says that at least she didn't die young like him. She calls him an idiot and says that of course not. They both lived full and peaceful lives. Isaac felt amused, then asked why she felt like an old woman in her twilight years. She shouted that of course not. She only had old memories, and she was still just a normal 5-year-old girl. She asked him again if, in his memory, he was still a student. Isaac denied it, saying he was just a normal 8-year-old child. Fillion said that perhaps because they were both in the world of your star, most of their memories came from the game, but there were still many unclear things. That might explain why she still speaks the same way as before. Isaac apologized to Yuka and said that even though they now shared old memories, they were no longer Taichi and Yuka. They had a chance to meet again. He wanted to apologize for everything, for ruining his own life after listening to the prophecy. Because he had broken down, stopped thinking, and stopped controlling his own life, he caused her and others to suffer unnecessary pain. You're just a terrible person. Fillion called him an idiot and exclaimed that her brother was a complete fool. She hugged him tightly and for a long time, and he told her that her silly brother was sorry for everything. Fillion asked whose house it was, and Isaac explained that it was his. He had told Roy they would meet here to avoid attracting attention. His parents hadn't expected the princess to come, so it was best for her to put on her cloak and hide. She agreed. Isaac told his mother that he had returned, and asked if Roy was home. His mother greeted him upon his return, but said he had come back too soon. Roy still hadn't arrived. Isaac said he would wait for Roy here. His mother asked why he wasn't waiting at the fountain as planned. He replied that something had happened today, so the plans had changed a little. Dad entered the room, and Mom said that she and Dennis were just going shopping for a short while, and since Isaac was home, he could look after the house. Isaac agreed and told them to be careful on their way. They told him to send their regards to Roy and then left. Fillion asked if those were his parents in this life because he looked so much like them. He replied that he didn't think their relationship was bad. Fillion smiled and he told her not to smile like that, but Fillion told him not to be embarrassed. She said that the man named Dennis reminded her of their father. Isaac agreed, but said that his father from the past was in the past, and only his current father was real. Both were serious about their work, and he respected them greatly. Fillion said that Taichi had really changed. He replied that too much had happened in his past. He helps his father with his work. Fillion asked if he thought the reason they had memories from their past lives was because he wanted to fix something he regretted. Isaac pondered the word fix. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Outside, someone identified himself as Roy and asked if Isaac was home. Fillion heard Roy had arrived, but before they could speak to Roy, he extended his hand and said it was nice to meet her. He called her Elena. She extended her hand in return, saying it was nice to meet him, and called him Isaac. He opened the door and told Roy that he had been waiting for him. Roy apologized very formally for being late, but wanted to know why Isaac had changed the meeting place. Isaac removed Fillion's cloak and told her she could take it off now. Roy was surprised and asked why Fillion was there. Then he ordered Matthew to stand guard. Fillion yelled that he couldn't give her a few seconds to calm down, asking why he was doing this. Isaac replied that the main purpose was to meet Roy, and how long did she intend to keep hiding behind him? She called him an idiot, and the prince laughed, saying that it seemed Isaac and Fillion had found common ground. Fillion immediately denied it, then said that Isaac had helped her when she got lost in the city. The prince asked her how she got lost. Isaac held up his cloak and asked if they could stop throwing things around. Roy apologized very sincerely and told Fillion that she needed to take better care of her belongings. Fillion apologized for taking it, saying she only did it to keep an eye on him, and that it was all his fault for not telling her about his outings. She was just curious. Isaac suggested that they both admit they were at fault. He asked what they needed to say. They both remained silent. He said they needed to apologize together. Something like that. Roy agreed and said he would be more careful next time. Feline also agreed with him. Isaac asked where Roy had gotten the cloak from. The prince replied that he had made it himself. Isaac then asked how. The prince explained that he had relied on the dark magic he had used when they were both evading the guards, just as he had said. He then realized he could use other types of magic, and upon further thought he decided to explore his abilities. Feline stared at Isaac. He wondered why she was looking at him like that. He said that Feline had just mentioned his dark magic, and that he had two kinds. Feline immediately rushed over, trying to cover his mouth, and demanding that he stop talking about those two abilities in public. This was a sensitive topic in his storyline. Isaac thought he didn't mind, so he told Feline to see for herself. They saw the prince smiling. Feline understood that it was true. Roy said he was happy to see them so close, but Feline immediately denied it. He said it was time for them to return to the palace, then told Feline they would meet again there. She agreed and apologized for interrupting him that day. The prince told her not to worry because he was still learning something new because of it. He noticed her hairstyle, gently patted her hair, and said that the ponytail really suited her. Isaac reminded him not to spoil his sister like that, and the prince apologized once again for the inconvenience caused. He told the boy to keep the cloak safe so no one else could take it. Roy told Matthews that they were leaving. Isaac asked if he needed to see them off, but Roy said not to worry. They could find their way back on their own. He said goodbye to Isaac. Feline called Isaac over and whispered in his ear that no matter what happened to her in the future, she would do everything to make Roy happy. Isaac said that was wonderful, and that he would do everything to make her happy too. Feline leaned in and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Roy and Matthews saw this and wondered why she kissed his ear, and whether she was in love with Isaac. Feline screamed in denial, saying that it wasn't a kiss and that it wasn't a kiss at all. On the way back to the palace by carriage, Feline told Roy that she couldn't do much, but if anything was bothering him, she hoped he would know he could tell her anything. Roy said it wasn't sudden, but Feline thought it was. She knew he was secretly up to something, just didn't know what it was. Roy laughed and said the word conspiracy sounded too negative. He asked if Isaac had told her anything yet. Feline replied that Isaac had nothing to do with this. Her desire to be relied upon by him was her own. She understood that her brothers always had their own things they wanted to do. But no matter what he hid from her, she would still worry about him, and he wouldn't be able to stop her. Roy laughed, saying that he really couldn't do anything but hope for the best. Feline asked why he was laughing, and that it was completely serious. Matthew clutched his stomach, thinking only of the amount of cleaning he would have to do. Even so, he thought that at least the two of them seemed to be having a good time. Meanwhile, Isaac and his father were trimming the roses. Isaac pondered the reason for his reincarnation. He remembered Feline's words, that perhaps the reason they carried memories from their past lives was because they wanted to rectify something they regretted. As a garden apprentice, he followed in his father's footsteps, and thus was reborn. His father called him over, saying he was pruning too much. April was almost over, and they needed to prune the roses so they would bloom beautifully in May. He found it difficult on his own, so he had to help him. Then, his father gave him a box of flowers and asked him to take it to the mansion and return. Isaac said he could do it himself, but he hadn't finished trimming them yet. However, his father insisted, and Isaac finally agreed. Isaac couldn't stop thinking ever since he met Feline. He felt like he wasn't himself anymore. Suddenly, he heard Lydia shouting at someone to stop. He was surprised to realize it was Lady Emma. But before he could understand what was happening, he was attacked by Lady Emma. She asked if he intended to be a shadow for the young lady. Then she criticized his dancing skills as disgusting, saying they were hindering the young lady's progress. She said that if he wanted to be the young lady's dance partner or shadow, he had to reach a level worthy of her. Isaac, surprised, asked what she was talking about. Emma grabbed him by the neck and told him he should come with her right now. Lydia would forgive her for stopping. She pulled Isaac to the ballroom. Isaac asked what they should do now. Emma replied that she wanted to learn to dance. Isaac was angry. He really should go back to work. He agreed, but the clothes he'd just been given were ridiculous. Gerlard stood in the doorway, observing the scene, and explained that these were his clothes from when he was young. Isaac asked if Gerlard wasn't busy, and Gerlard explained that everyone needs a break. and he was asked for advice on the best outfit to wear to dance lessons. Gerlard noticed Isaac liked that outfit and asked Lydia if she did. Lydia said she thought it was better, though not by much. Isaac thanked her and asked how long she had been observing him. Gerlard said it was lovely to see someone wearing their old clothes again. Incidentally, he asked Isaac what it would be like to be his son. Lydia tried to stop him, but Isaac told him not to joke like that. Gerlard realized that Isaac was not someone who easily made mistakes. Although it was still early, he thought it should be considered a birthday present. Lydia was surprised and asked Gerlard how he knew Isaac's birthday. Gerlard replied that of course he knew. He was a servant in their household. It was probably the 9th. Lydia said that she didn't even know until last year. Isaac pondered the question she hadn't asked. Emma wondered if they were done with their pointless conversations and wanted to get back to the main point. Isaac had to attend all of the young lady's subsequent dance lessons as her partner. Isaac thought that he was just a novice, that he had so much work to do, and that his father would be furious. Gerlard promised to talk to Dennis and help him sort things out, so he didn't need to worry. Isaac realized he had been cornered. Emma asked if they agreed. Lydia was terrified, and they agreed. So, under Miss Emma's guidance, Isaac attended dance classes for the next 2 weeks. Half a month had passed, and they were walking in the garden, the blue blossoms spreading everywhere, and it felt as if they were walking on the sky. His father had come up with the idea for the garden, and had it completed last week for Isaac's birthday. Prince Roy asked if his birthday was last month, and he didn't know. Lydia said that really, using their family garden as a gift for their son was excessive. Isaac was even more excited than expected when he saw this beautiful garden, planted just for him. Lydia thought Dennis was being too cunning. Isaac wanted to ask Roy something. He wanted to know what the shadow of a dance partner should look like, not the shadow on the ground. Roy asked if he was talking about dancing. Isaac explained that he wanted to ask Lydia, but she remained silent. The prince explained that the shadow was a representation of the dance partner, the person the dancer represented. He asked why Isaac needed that. Isaac explained that it was how his teacher called him. It turned out he was replacing Roy. Lydia shouted that this was not true. She wanted to dance with Prince Roy's shadow, but what kind of dance was that? Emma told her she was trying to lead the prince, which was completely wrong. A man should lead, and she wanted to lead his majesty behind her. When the teacher explained why she couldn't do it, she explained that she had been dancing with detached gazes, and then she decided to bring gazes into the lesson. Therefore, she promised him that she had no intention of putting him in the role of Prince Roy or anyone else. Both boys gazed at her intently. The prince said he understood everything, but remembered that she had danced very well last year. If Isaac is her dance partner, he must be a good dancer. I want to see how he really dances. Isaac said he received the medicine box because of this. He danced worse than not knowing how to dance at all. His hands were clumsy, as if he were forcing the movements. He had intended to be the leader in the dance, but ended up just following Lydia, letting her be the center of attention. It turned out they had switched roles, and so the dance ended strangely. The teacher was furious. If he wanted to fix it, they needed to try harder to stand out a little more. Roy asked him to go to the dance simply because he didn't want to be the center of attention. That didn't help at all. It would be better to try to get used to the attention of a large crowd. Isaac doubted he would ever be able to attend the dance. Roy said his birthday is in August, so he could easily invite a friend. Last year, he danced with everyone, including potential brides, but he never made a final decision and generally prefers to avoid such stressful situations. Isaac says he dances awkwardly and his clothes aren't always appropriate. Prince Roy said that he wouldn't be dancing at the festival this year, so Lady Lydia needed to find a dance partner. Isaac's presence would solve that problem. He asked Isaac what he thought of the idea. Isaac replied that he greatly appreciated it and would remember it. Then he shouted, asking if they could really hear him. Lydia said that if he didn't want to come, that was fine, and she would talk to her father about finding another dance partner. Isaac realized he had upset her again. He said that what he meant was, if there really was no other option, then he'll think about it. Lydia was delighted. But first, she needed to ask the Duke's permission, and he promised he wouldn't leave her alone. The Duke asked Lydia again if she really wanted to bring Isaac to the prince's birthday party. Then he said it was a good idea. Lydia, surprised, asked if it was true. He replied that of course it was. If it was a request from the prince, how could he refuse? Isaac said he danced very strangely and his clothes were not good either. The Duke explained that he greatly admired Isaac's dancing, and was even more pleased that Lydia would be dancing with him instead of some stranger he had never met. Isaac agreed, saying that they needed to work harder in their dance lessons, and it seemed they had already begun learning the necessary etiquette during practice. Isaac reminded everyone to try not to add to his workload. Roy was delighted, saying it was good that Isaac would be coming to the party. Lydia thanked him. This would be a good opportunity for Isaac to learn more. Only Isaac was unhappy. He had the feeling that the prince was always trying to push him into doing something. Roy said he was exaggerating. It's better to consider this a gift, since Isaac's birthday also happened this month. Isaac thought to himself that this was a rather ambiguous gift, difficult to refuse, and he didn't understand why they were giving it to him. Lydia was upset, saying how easily people could give gifts. While she didn't know what to give him, his birthday came earlier than she expected, making her even more confused. Roy said he was sure Isaac wouldn't mind if Lydia gave him a gift now, and he had no doubt Isaac would be delighted to receive one from her. If Lydia wishes, he can offer advice. Not as a prince, but as a mutual friend. Lydia agreed, saying that his opinion was very important. She also wanted to ask him one more favor. Please wait a little longer before she gives an answer to his previous proposal. She will reply during the upcoming holiday at the last minute, Roy agreed, saying he didn't want her to have to give an answer right now. What he liked most was seeing Isaac in formal attire. Lydia laughed, saying that she did too. They discussed what they should give Isaac as a gift. Lydia asked if it was a good idea. She wanted to give something Isaac could keep as a memento. Lydia had 3 months to make a decision.